The van door slammed open, and Caleb Ward had exactly 3 seconds to decide walk away. Like every rational bone in his body screamed, or throw himself between armed professionals and a woman he'd never met. His daughter Sage was home waiting. He had groceries in the truck. He was 42 years old and done with this life. But muscle memory doesn't forget, and when he saw the triangular formation closing on the woman in the midnight blue gown, every instinct from his Navy years ignited. 3 seconds. He chose chaos. And Celeste Armitage, billionaire CEO, quantum physics prodigy, and the most dangerous target in the city, would spend the rest of her life trying to repay him. Before we dive in, I need you to do something for me. This story gets wild, it gets real, and it's going to take you on a ride you won't forget. Stick with me until the very end. Trust me. You'll want to know how this all shakes out. And hey, drop a comment with your city below. I want to see how far this story travels. Now, let's get into it. The Opera House steps gleamed wet under the streetlights, and Caleb Ward was thinking about whether Sage had remembered to lock the deadbolt when he spotted them. 3 men. Wrong posture. Wrong spacing. Moving with the kind of synchronized precision that doesn't happen by accident. He'd been reaching for his truck door keys, already in hand, grocery bags from the late-night mart sitting in the passenger seat. Sage had texted 20 minutes ago, picked up extra shift at library home by 11, and he'd swung by the store because they were out of the good coffee, the kind that made Sunday mornings bearable. Simple. Domestic. Normal. Except nothing about the way those 3 men were moving toward the woman descending the Opera House steps was normal. Caleb's hand froze on the door handle. The woman wore a gown that caught the light like liquid sapphire. Her dark hair swept up in something elegant and complicated. She was alone, no security, no date, no driver visibly waiting. Just her, and a small clutch purse moving down the marble steps with the kind of confident grace that said she owned every room she walked into. And the 3 men were closing the triangle. Not your problem, Caleb's rational mind supplied. Get in the truck, go home, Sage is waiting. But his body was already cataloging threat markers, earpieces, barely visible synchronized timing, the way the lead man's right hand stayed inside his jacket. Professional. Military-grade professional. The woman, Celeste Armitage, though Caleb didn't know her name yet, checked her phone completely oblivious. She'd just emerged from a charity gala where she'd written a check with more zeros than Caleb would see in 5 years, and all she wanted was her car and maybe a bourbon before tomorrow's board meeting. She never saw them coming. Caleb moved. 20 yards of wet pavement. The lead man was already reaching for her arm, the classic control grip disguised as a polite gesture. "Ms. Armitage, your car's been moved. This way, please." His voice was smooth, practiced, and completely wrong. Caleb hit the choke point at a dead sprint, grocery bags, forgotten somewhere behind him. The lead man's hand was 6 inches from Celeste's elbow when Caleb slammed into him from the side. Not a tackle, something more surgical. A 2-point strike that sent the man stumbling into the fountain, railing, earpiece flying. "Run!" Caleb barked at Celeste. She didn't run. She froze, which was the worst possible response, eyes wide with shock. The second man lunged from the left. Caleb caught the motion in his peripheral vision, pivoted, and met him with an elbow strike that should have been retired from his repertoire 10 years ago. The man went down hard, blood streaming from his nose. 3 seconds. That's all the advantage Surprise had bought him. The third man had already moved to the black van idling at the curb door, sliding open with military efficiency. Caleb saw the weapon, compact professional, emerging from inside the van's dark interior. Time compressed. He grabbed Celeste's arm. Her skin was cold shock, making her muscles rigid, and yanked her toward the fountain using the marble basin as cover. The first shot was suppressed, a sound like a champagne cork wrapped in cotton, and the bullet sparked off stone 6 inches from Caleb's head. "Stay down!" He growled, his voice carrying every ounce of command from 1,000 operations that felt like yesterday and a lifetime ago simultaneously. Celeste, to her credit, dropped. Her clutch purse hit the wet pavement, contents scattering. The lead man was recovering, reaching inside his jacket. Caleb didn't give him the chance. He vaulted the fountain edge, closing the distance before the man could draw, and drove a knee into his solar plexus. The man folded, gasping weapon, clattering across the marble. But the van was moving now, door still open, and Caleb could hear the third man's voice, calm, tactical. Package compromised, initiating extraction. Which meant they were about to escalate. Caleb made a split-second calculation. 3 hostiles, 1 armed, and in a vehicle with unknown backup. 1 civilian, who apparently had no idea what kind of target she'd painted on herself. 0 backup, 0 intel, and a daughter at home who'd just lost her mother to cancer 8 months ago and could not afford to lose her father to a hero complex. The rational choice was obvious. "Your phone?" Caleb snapped at Celeste, who was crouched behind the fountain mascara, starting to run, but her jaw set with surprising steel. "Call 911, now!" She fumbled with her clutch fingers, shaking but functional. "Who are not important? Make the call." Celeste's fingers found her phone miraculously unshattered, and she started dialing. Her voice came out steadier than Caleb expected. "Yes, I need police. Opera House, Grand Avenue. Armed men attempted—" She glanced at Caleb. "Kidnapping!" He nodded grimly. The van's engine revved. The second man, nose-broken face, a mask of blood, was scrambling toward the vehicle. The lead man had recovered enough to start moving, one hand clutching his ribs. They were withdrawing, but not running. Withdrawing. There was a difference, and Caleb knew it in his bones. Smoke grenades popped, 2 of them small tactical units that filled the street with dense white fog in seconds. Standard cover for tactical retreat. Expensive. Professional. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Through the smoke, Caleb heard the van doors slam, tires squealing as it peeled away. He caught a partial plate dark sedan, government-adjacent make, but the numbers were obscured. And then they were gone. The smoke cleared slowly, theatrical and surreal against the opera house's elegant facade. Celeste stood slowly, her gown ruined with fountain water and grime, her hair coming loose from its complicated updo. She looked at Caleb like he was a ghost that had stepped out of her nightmares to save her life. "You—" Her voice was hoarse. "You just—" "Saved you from a professional snatch team." Caleb finished, his own adrenaline starting to crash, replaced by the cold wash of reality. "Which means someone wants you very badly, and they're not going to stop because I interrupted their first attempt." She stared at him. "Who are you?" "Nobody." He pulled out his own phone, checking for Sage's texts. Nothing yet. Good. Just a guy who was in the wrong place at the right time. Police cruisers screamed around the corner, lights painting the scene in blue and red chaos. The FBI field office smelled like bad coffee and institutional anxiety. Special Agent in charge Renee Park had the kind of eyes that had seen too much and trusted too little. She sat across the metal table from Caleb, a case file open between them, and studied him with the intensity of someone cataloging every micro-expression. Caleb Ward, 42, former Navy Special Operations honorable discharge 6 years ago, currently working security at Riverside Mall. She looked up. That's quite a step down. "It pays the bills," Caleb said evenly. "And the hours work with my daughter's schedule." Renee's expression softened fractionally. "Sage, 16, honor student. I'm sorry about your wife." "Ex-wife." The correction was automatic. "And thanks." Across the room, separated by a glass partition, Celeste Armitage was giving her statement to another agent. Even through the glass and disheveled from the attack, she commanded attention. Her eyes kept drifting to Caleb, questions written across her face. "The men you engaged," Renee continued, pulling his attention back. "Can you identify them?" "Not specifically. But I can tell you they were professionals. Military or high-end private sector. Synchronized movements, tactical equipment, suppressed weapons. This wasn't some opportunistic grab." "No?" Renee agreed quietly. It wasn't. She slid a photograph across the table. Security camera still grainy but clear enough. One of the attacker's face partially visible. Recognize him. Caleb studied the image. No. His name is Marcus Rook, former Blackwater, now freelance. He specializes in extractions, the kind that don't make headlines. She pulled out another photo. His team was bailed out 2 hours ago. Anonymous bond posted through a Shell LLC. Fast work, Caleb observed. Too fast. Renee leaned back, crossing her arms. Which means whoever hired them has significant resources and doesn't care about covering their tracks carefully. They want Ms. Armitage, and they want her badly enough to be sloppy about cleanup. Why? That's the question. Renee glanced at Celeste through the glass. Axiom Labs, you know it. Caleb shook his head. Quantum computing and defense applications. Classified contracts with DoD cutting-edge research that makes foreign intelligence services salivate. Ms. Armitage isn't just a CEO, she's the keystone. Without her, Axiom's value drops by 60% overnight. So this is corporate espionage. Maybe, or a hostile takeover with more hostile than anyone expected. Renee tapped the file. We're offering protective custody. Federal safe house, full security detail. For how long? Until we neutralize the threat. Caleb met her eyes. That could be weeks, months. Yes. I have a daughter. I can't disappear into witness protection. Mr. Ward. Caleb. Caleb. Renee's voice took on an edge. You just made yourself a target. You disrupted a professional operation. Your face will be all over the news by morning. Hero stops kidnapping, human interest story, etc. They know who you are now. And if they think you're an obstacle... She didn't need to finish. Caleb's jaw tightened. I need to get home. We can provide escort. No federal vehicles parked outside my duplex. No agents in suits making my neighbors nervous. I'll handle my own security. Renee studied him for a long moment. You're making a mistake. Probably. Caleb stood. But it's my mistake to make. The news hit before he made it home. Sage called while he was driving, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. Dad, you're trending on Twitter. What? Mystery hero stops kidnapping. There's video. Someone filmed it on their phone from across the street. Dad, you're everywhere. Caleb's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Are you okay? Are you home? Yeah, I'm fine, but Dad, they're posting your name, your address, everything. Doxed, of course. Because saving someone's life wasn't enough. The internet had to dissect every detail, turn it into content, feed the machine. Lock the doors, Caleb said, forcing calm into his voice. Don't answer if anyone knocks. I'm 10 minutes out. There's a car outside. His blood went cold. What kind of car? Black SUV, tinted windows. It pulled up about 20 minutes ago and hasn't moved. Sage, listen to me very carefully. Go to your room, lock the door. Stay away from the windows. I'm coming. He pushed the accelerator, running a yellow light that was definitely red. 8 minutes. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He ignored it. 6 minutes. Another call. Same unknown number. This time he answered. Mr. Ward. The voice was female, cultured, familiar. It's Celeste Armitage. How did you get this number? I have resources. We need to talk. Not a good time. I know about the car outside your home. I know your daughter spotted surveillance. I know that by saving my life, you've made yourself and Sage targets. A pause. I can help. Caleb's jaw worked. I don't need. Yes, you do. And more importantly, I owe you. Meet me. 1 hour. There's a diner on 5th and Marshall. No. He turned onto his street, eyes immediately finding the black SUV parked 3 houses down from his duplex. You want to talk, you come to me. but lose the federal escort first. Silence. Then, agreed. He hung up. The SUV's windows were too dark to see inside, but Caleb could feel eyes tracking him as he pulled into his driveway. He palmed the small tactical knife he kept in the center console, illegal to carry, essential to have, and moved quickly to his front door. Sage met him in the hallway, her face pale but composed. She'd inherited her mother's eyes and her father's refusal to panic. "You're okay," she said, and it wasn't quite a question. "I'm okay." He pulled her into a brief, fierce hug. "Tell me about the car." "Showed up around 10:30. Haven't seen anyone get out. Just sitting there." "Did you get plates?" She held up her phone, showing him a photo she'd taken from the upstairs window. "Good angle, clear shot." His daughter was smart. "Good work." He studied the image, committing the plate to memory. "Pack a bag. Essentials for 3 days." Her eyes widened. "We're leaving?" "Maybe. I don't know yet, but I want to be ready." Sage didn't argue. She'd learned early that when her father used that tone, questions could wait. The doorbell rang. Caleb moved to the door, checked the peephole. A woman stood on his porch. Not Celeste Armitage. Someone younger, maybe late 20s, wearing a professional pantsuit and carrying a manila folder. He opened the door with the chain still engaged. "Help you." "Mr. Ward, I'm from Child Protective Services." She held up an ID. "We received a report about unsafe living conditions for a minor at this address. I need to conduct a welfare check." Every muscle in Caleb's body went rigid. At 11 o'clock at night. The report indicated immediate danger. "I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding, but I do need to see." "Come back tomorrow with a warrant and a police escort." Caleb closed the door, locked it, and immediately pulled out his phone. Renee Park answered on the first ring. "Ward? Someone just filed a CPS report on me. Anonymous, I'm guessing. Trying to get access to my house to Sage." "Jesus." He heard her typing. "Okay, I'm flagging it. They can't enter without probable cause, and an anonymous report isn't. They're applying pressure, different vectors, the surveillance, the doxing, now this. They want you destabilized, vulnerable. It's working." Caleb looked at Sage, who'd come downstairs with a packed duffel, her face carefully neutral. "I need options." "Federal custody is still on the table." "Not happening." "Then," Renee paused, "there might be another way. Armitage has been calling me. She wants to offer you something." "I don't want her money." "It's not about money. Talk to her." Renee's voice softened. "Caleb, pride is expensive. Your daughter's safety is priceless. At least hear what she has to say." The line went dead. Caleb stood in his living room, the weight of 6 years of civilian life pressing against 12 years of operational experience. He'd walked away from this world, built something normal, something safe, something that didn't involve threat assessment and tactical responses. And in 3 seconds outside an opera house, he'd blown it all apart. Sage put a hand on his arm. "Dad, what do we do?" Before he could answer, his phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "The offer stands. I have proof of who bailed Rook's team. You need to see this." CA attached was a single photograph, a bail bond document with a corporate seal visible. Even in the compressed image, Caleb could make out the LLC name Greystoke Holdings. It meant nothing to him, but someone thought it should. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Celeste Greystoke is owned by Dorian Pike. He's on my board of directors, and he's been trying to force me out for 8 months. Caleb stared at the screen. This wasn't random. This wasn't foreign espionage or opportunistic kidnapping. This was a corporate coup wrapped in mercenary violence, and Celeste Armitage wasn't the only target anymore. He looked at Sage, then back at the black SUV still idling outside, then at the photo on his phone. "Pack warmer clothes, too," he told Sage quietly. "We might be gone longer than 3 days." Celeste Armitage arrived alone, driving a Tesla that probably cost more than Caleb's duplex, and walked up to his door like she owned the street. Which, given her net worth, she probably could. Caleb let her in, scanning the street one more time. The black SUV had left 20 minutes ago, whether spooked by Celeste's arrival or rotating shifts he didn't know. "Nice place," Celeste said, though her eyes were cataloging everything: the worn furniture, the textbooks stacked on the coffee table, the framed photo of Sage at her middle school graduation. "It's home." Caleb closed the door. "You said you have proof." "Direct. I appreciate that." Celeste set a leather briefcase on the kitchen table. "Before we get into specifics, I want you to understand something. I'm not here to buy you. I'm not here to make you feel obligated. I'm here because you saved my life, and because by doing so, you've become entangled in something that's going to get worse before it gets better. The corporate coup. You've been doing research. Agent Park likes to talk." Celeste smiled faintly. "Renee is thorough." She opened the briefcase, pulling out a stack of documents. Dorian Pike, 56, Harvard MBA, 17 years on Axiom's board. He's been quietly acquiring shares through layered SPVs, special purpose vehicles, for the past 10 months. If he succeeds in his next move, he'll control 48% of voting shares. That's not majority. No, but combined with 2 other board members he's already compromised, it's enough to force a vote of no confidence in my leadership. Caleb flipped through the documents. Financial records, corporate filings, emails with key phrases highlighted. "Why does he want you out?" "Because I won't weaponize our technology." Celeste's voice was quiet, but edged with steel. Axiom developed a quantum encryption system that's effectively unbreakable. DoD wants it. So does China. So do about 15 other countries and a dozen private interests. Dorian wants to sell to the highest bidder. I want to ensure it's used responsibly. And kidnapping you accomplishes what? Leverage. If I disappear, the board has to appoint interim leadership. Dorian's already positioned himself as the obvious choice. Once he's in control, he can restructure, sell off divisions, pivot the company's direction. By the time I resurface, if I resurface, it won't matter. Caleb met her eyes. "You think he'd kill you?" "I think he's hired people who would if the situation demanded it." A sound from the stairs. Sage descending slowly, her duffel bag still slung over one shoulder. She looked at Celeste with undisguised curiosity. "You're her," Sage said. "The Quantum CEO." Celeste's expression shifted surprise, then something warmer. "You follow tech news." "I follow anything that might get me a scholarship." Sage set down her bag. "Your paper on quantum entanglement in distributed networks was brilliant. The part about using topological qubits to solve decoherence issues." "You read that?" Now Celeste was genuinely impressed. "Twice. The math was dense, but the applications..." Sage glanced at her father. "Dad, if she's really under threat from her own board, and they're willing to use contractors like the ones you described." "I know," Caleb said quietly. Celeste watched this exchange, something calculating behind her eyes. When she spoke again, her voice was different, less CEO, more human. "Mr. Ward, I came here to offer you a position. Head of Personal Security, Executive Protection, full benefit salary in the high 6 figures. You'd have complete autonomy over protocol, staffing, budget." "I don't want..." "But that's not really what I'm offering." Celeste cut him off gently. "What I'm really offering is a partnership. You keep me alive, I keep you and Sage protected. You have skills I need, and I have resources you need. We're already targets. The question is whether we face this separately or together." Caleb was silent. Sage spoke instead. "What kind of protection are we talking about?" "Secure residence, armored transport, private security detail for you specifically separate from your father's work. I have a facility with apartments for key personnel. Safe room, redundant systems, the works." "Like a prison," Caleb said. like a fortress. Celeste leaned forward. I know this isn't what you want. I know you walked away from this life for a reason. But Caleb, can I call you Caleb? He nodded. Caleb, the moment you stepped in front of that van, you made a choice. You can't unmake it. They know who you are. They know about Sage. And they've already started applying pressure. She gestured to the documents. This CPS report filed 90 minutes after the news broke about you. The surveillance outside started before I even left the FBI field office. They're moving fast because they know their window is closing. What window? The shareholder vote is in 10 days. Dorian needs me neutralized before then, which means the next week and a half are going to be the most dangerous of our lives. Celeste stood. I'm not asking you to say yes tonight, but I am asking you to come see the facility. Let Sage see it. Make an informed decision. Caleb looked at his daughter. Sage's expression was carefully neutral, but he could read her tells after 16 years. The slight tension in her shoulders. The way she was gripping the strap of her duffel bag. She was scared, and trying not to show it. One condition, Caleb said finally. Sage comes first, always. If there's ever a choice between your safety and hers, you lose. Every time. Celeste didn't hesitate. Agreed. And I walk away whenever I want. No contracts, no obligations, no golden handcuffs. Woo. Also agreed. And you tell me everything. No classified bullshit, no need-to-know games. If I'm protecting you, I need the full picture. Celeste smiled. That one might be harder, but yes, full transparency. Caleb extended his hand. Then show us this fortress. They shook. And somewhere in the city, in an office that smelled like expensive cigars and older money, Dorian Pike watched surveillance footage of Celeste Armitage leaving Caleb Ward's duplex and smiled. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The fortress turned out to be a penthouse complex on the 42nd floor of Axiom Tower, all reinforced glass and brushed steel with sightlines that would make a sniper weep. Caleb walked the perimeter twice while Celeste showed Sage the apartment that would be hers, 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, a study with better tech than most university labs. The windows are rated for .50 caliber, Celeste explained, rapping her knuckles against the glass. The entire floor operates on an isolated power grid with diesel backup. 4 independent communication systems, panic room concealed behind the master closet. Caleb tested a window lock found it military grade. What's the egress plan if the main elevators are compromised? Service elevator here, emergency stairs there, and a helipad on the roof with a bird on standby. Celeste moved to a wall panel, entered a code. A section of wall slid back, revealing a compact armory. I'm not naive about the threats I face, Caleb. I've been preparing. Preparing isn't the same as surviving. He examined the weapon selection, good choices, well maintained. Who handles your security currently? Garrison Security Solutions, corporate contract. They do sweeps, monitor access points, standard executive protection. Fire them. Celeste's eyebrows rose. That's a $14 million annual contract. They're competent at keeping out normal threats. This isn't normal. Caleb closed the armory panel. Whoever disabled the Opera House cameras had inside access. That means your current security is compromised or incompetent. Either way, they're a liability. Sage emerged from the study, her eyes bright with the kind of excitement she usually reserved for coding competitions. Dad, they have quantum processors in the lab downstairs. Actual quantum processors. I could... She caught herself. Sorry, not important right now. It's important, Celeste said gently. When this is over, I'll give you a full tour. Show you what we're building. She looked at Caleb. You're right about Garrison. I'll terminate the contract tomorrow. Who do you want instead? Nobody initially. Let me handle close protection personally for the first week. I'll identify vulnerabilities, then we can talk about staffing. He moved to the window, studying the street 42 floors below. But I need full access. Building systems, personnel files, security logs, everything. Done. And I need to know who else is on your board besides Dorian Pike. Every member, their voting patterns, their financial entanglements. Celeste's expression tightened. You think there are others? He didn't acquire 48% of voting shares without help. Someone's been feeding him information, opening doors. Caleb turned from the window. We find them before they find us. A soft chime. Celeste checked her phone, and her face went carefully neutral. Maya, my CFO. She's asking if I'm in the building. Tell her yes. I want to meet her. Now. Now. Maya Ortiz arrived 15 minutes later, a compact woman in her late 40s with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She took one look at Caleb and Sage, then at Celeste and said, You hired him. I'm considering it, Celeste replied. Good. You should have done it yesterday. Maya set down a tablet, pulled up a spreadsheet. We have a problem. 3 board members requested access to our quantum encryption documentation this afternoon, simultaneously. Same timestamp. Caleb moved to look at the tablet. They're coordinating. Obviously. But here's the interesting part. The request came through our legacy system, not the current portal. Someone gave them backdoor credentials. Who has that level of access? Caleb asked. Fewer than 20 people, all senior leadership. So we have at least one insider, possibly more. He looked at Celeste. You need to lock down those files, immediately. If I do that, the board will know I'm onto them. It could trigger... The lights went out. Not just in the apartment, the entire building dropped into darkness. Through the windows, Caleb could see the blackout spreading outward in a wave, swallowing blocks of the city in seconds. Rolling blackout, Maya breathed. But it's not summer. There's no grid strain. Caleb's instincts screamed. No, this is tactical. They're testing response times, mapping your backup systems. He moved to Sage, his voice dropping to command mode. Stay here, away from the windows. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in cold blue. The backup generators had kicked in, but something felt wrong. The silence was too complete. Your phone, Caleb said to Celeste. Call building security. Tell them to lock down all access points. She dialed, waited. No answer. Landline, dead. Maya's face went pale. The backup system should have... They did, which means someone cut the primary lines before triggering the blackout. Caleb moved to the armory panel, started pulling weapons. This is the second wave. The blackout was phase 1. As if on cue, Caleb's phone buzzed. Text from Renee Park Axiom building flagged on Federal Watch. Multiple suspicious persons entering via loading dock. SWAT en route, ETA 8 minutes. 8 minutes. A lifetime in tactical terms. We need to move, Caleb said. Now. Where? Celeste's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly as she took the weapon. He offered a compact Glock, loaded and ready. Not down. They'll be sweeping up from the loading dock. We go to the server room, it's defensible, and they won't risk destroying their objective. The server room is 12 floors down, Maya pointed out. Then we move fast. Caleb checked his own weapon, a Sig Sauer he'd retrieved from his truck before coming up. Elevators. Too risky, Celeste said. If they control building systems. Service stairs. Go. They moved as a unit, Caleb on point, Maya and Celeste flanking Sage in the middle. The emergency lighting made everything look apocalyptic, shadows jumping with every step. The stairwell door opened to reveal a different kind of darkness. Caleb raised his weapon, sweeping corners with the tactical light mounted beneath the barrel. Empty. For now. 12 floors, he muttered. Stay tight. They descended quickly, but not recklessly. At each landing, Caleb cleared before allowing them to proceed. His breathing was controlled, automatic muscle memory taking over from 6 years of rust. They'd made it to the 35th floor when he heard the soft scuff of tactical boots on concrete somewhere above them. At least two, maybe more. Caleb held up a fist. Everyone froze. The sounds grew closer. Professional movement coordinated. Not security guards responding to an alarm. These were operators. "The 34th floor landing," Caleb whispered. "Move." They descended faster now. Noise discipline abandoned for speed. Behind them, the stairwell door burst open, and voices echoed down. "Movement level 35. Pursuing." They hit the 34th floor landing, and Caleb made an instant decision. "Elevator shaft, now!" "Are you insane?" Maya hissed. "The elevators are dead, but the shafts are clear. We climb down the maintenance ladder." He was already prying open the service panel beside the elevator doors. "It's this, or face them in the stairwell." Celeste didn't argue. She helped Sage through the narrow opening, then followed. Maya went next, cursing under her breath. Caleb came last, pulling the panel closed behind them, just as boots thundered onto the landing. The shaft was a vertical tomb of cables and darkness. Caleb's tactical light illuminated a ladder bolted to the concrete wall old industrial built before OSHA had opinions about workplace safety. "Climb," he breathed. "Don't look down." They descended in silence, broken only by the creak of old metal and the distant shouts from the stairwell. 20 feet. 40. The 30th floor elevator doors appeared like a salvation marker. Caleb reached out, finding the manual release mechanism he'd spotted during his earlier security assessment. He'd memorized the locations of 17 different emergency exits in this building. Paranoia paying dividends. The doors ground open with a metallic shriek that seemed to echo forever. They tumbled into the 30th floor corridor, and Caleb immediately oriented himself. Server room is West Corridor Section B, through that security door. But when they rounded the corner, they found the security door already open. Sparks cascading from the keycard reader where someone had bypassed it with brutal efficiency. "They're already here," Celeste whispered. "No." Caleb studied the damage. This was opened from inside. Someone with credentials. Maya's face went ashen. "The insider." A sound behind them, the elevator doors grinding open again. They'd been followed into the shaft. Caleb made a split-second calculation. Forward into a potentially hostile server room, or back into the arms of Rook's team. "Move. Server room. Now." They sprinted through the damaged security door into the server room's Arctic environment. Rows of black towers hummed with computational power LED indicators, blinking like electronic fireflies. The fire suppression system's nozzles watched from above, like silent guardians. "Find cover," Caleb ordered. "Between the server banks. Stay low." They scattered. Caleb positioned himself with sightlines to both entrance points, weapon ready. 30 seconds of silence. Then movement at the main entrance, a figure in tactical gear, thermal optics mounted on their weapon. They were hunting by heat signature in the server room's cold environment. Caleb's mind raced. The server heat would create thermal noise, but human signatures would still read bright. They were sitting ducks. Unless. He crawled to the nearest environmental control panel and did something any IT professional would have a stroke witnessing. He triggered the fire suppression system manually. Gas flooded the room in seconds, cold and dense, dropping the temperature 20 degrees in heartbeats. The thermal imagery would be chaos, now useless. But so was visibility for everyone. The tactical team entered blind, and Caleb used their confusion. He moved through the white fog like a ghost, circling behind the lead operator, and struck with precision, weapon-secured operator down, not dead, but unconscious. "Caleb," Celeste's voice somewhere in the fog. "Stay down," he called back. "I'm—" Gunfire erupted. Suppressed, but unmistakable. Bullets sparked off server towers, and Caleb dropped flat as rounds passed where his head had been. More operators. At least 2. He returned fire-controlled bursts, not spraying, and heard a grunt of pain. Hit, not killed. The fog was dissipating, pulled away by the server room's massive ventilation system. In seconds, they'd have clear sight lines again. "Sage." Caleb called. The offline NAS system, the one you helped Maya prep yesterday. Can you activate it remotely? From here? Sage's voice was shaking but functional. Maybe. If the local network. Do it, now. We need those data mirrors offline before they can be compromised. Through the thinning fog, Caleb saw Sage pull out a laptop. She'd grabbed it from the apartment smart girl, and her fingers flew across the keyboard with the kind of speed that came from 1,000 coding competitions. I'm in, she said, spinning down the main arrays. Data's transferring to the isolated backup. 20 seconds. More gunfire. Maya cried out hit, but not badly, clutching her arm. Caleb moved to her, providing cover. Stay with me. I'm fine, Maya gritted. Just a graze. The servers around them began a coordinated shutdown sequence, lights changing from green to amber to red. Sage's fingers never stopped moving, routing critical data through encrypted channels that even Caleb didn't fully understand. Done, Sage announced. Everything's locked down. They can't access without the quantum keys, and those are right here. The voice came from the shadows, and Caleb's blood went cold as a man stepped into view. Not wearing tactical gear like the others. A suit. Expensive. And holding a pistol pointed directly at Celeste. Dorian Pike smiled. Wonderful evening for a hostile acquisition, don't you think? Celeste's weapon came up, but Dorian was faster, not with violence, but with words. I wouldn't. My team has your father surrounded, young Sage. One wrong move and this becomes significantly messier. Sage went rigid. Caleb could see 3 red laser dots converging on her position from the darkness. His tactical assessment had been wrong. They'd infiltrated with more personnel than he'd estimated. Stand down, Mr. Ward, Dorian continued pleasantly. You're talented, I'll grant you, but you're outnumbered and outmaneuvered. I have 8 operators in this building. You've incapacitated 2. The math isn't favorable. Caleb's weapon didn't waver. You're making a mistake. Am I? Let's examine the situation. I control the building systems. I have personnel at every egress point. Federal response is delayed because someone called in false active shooter reports across the city stretched their resources wonderfully thin. Dorian's smile widened. And most importantly, I have leverage. Stand down or Sage becomes an unfortunate casualty. Celeste's face was a mask of fury. This won't work, Dorian. You think kidnapping me will give you control? Kidnapping, no. You're going to resign. Tonight. A beautifully crafted letter citing health concerns, recommending me as interim CEO effective immediately. You'll deliver it to the board yourself. And if I refuse? Then I trigger Phase 2. And this city experiences a catastrophic grid failure. Power plants go offline. Hospitals, traffic systems, emergency services, all of it goes dark. And the forensic trail will point directly to Axiom's quantum encryption being used as the attack vector. Dorian's expression never changed. You'll be vilified. The company will be dismantled. Everything you've built, destroyed. You'd kill thousands of people. I'd do what's necessary to secure my position. Just as you're about to do what's necessary to protect your new friends. He gestured to Caleb and Sage. Resign, Celeste. We both know it's the only rational choice. Maya's voice cut through weak but fierce. There's a third option. Dorian's eyes flicked to her. The CFO who thinks she matters. How quaint. I have shareholder proxy rights, Maya said, pressing her injured arm against her side. Rights that were granted by Axiom's founder as a failsafe against hostile takeovers. 62% voting power if the original CEO is deemed to be under duress. The smile faded from Dorian's face. That's a myth. Those proxies expired years ago. They didn't. I've kept them active, renewed them every quarter like the old man asked me to. Maya pulled a folded document from her jacket with her good hand. Legal binding, and filed with the SEC 3 days ago. I wondered why he insisted on that clause. Now I know. You're lying. Test me. Maya's eyes were hard. Pull that trigger. Force Celeste to resign. The moment there's evidence of duress, I activate the proxies, and you become a minority shareholder with zero control." Silence, stretched like piano wire ready to snap. Dorian's weapon wavered slightly. Not much, just enough to reveal that Maya's words had hit home. Caleb saw the opening and moved. He wasn't faster than Dorian's trigger finger, but he was faster than Dorian's decision-making process. The weapon discharged a sound like the world cracking, but Caleb was already inside Dorian's guard, redirecting the pistol's aim toward the ceiling. Concrete dust rained down as the bullet went high and wild. The operators with laser sights on Sage hesitated, fatal mistake. Celeste moved like liquid violence, tackling Sage behind a server bank while returning fire with surprising accuracy. And then the cavalry arrived. The stairwell door exploded inward, and Renee Park led a FBI tactical team through, with the kind of aggressive efficiency that came from too many hostage situations. Federal agents, weapons down now. The operators complied immediately, professional enough to know when the game was over. Dorian, still struggling in Caleb's grip, went rigid. "This isn't over," Dorian hissed. "Actually," Renee said, zip-tying his wrists with clinical precision. "It really is. We've been tracking your communications for 3 days. Wiretaps. Financial surveillance. We have everything, Dorian. The SPVs, the offshore accounts, the Rook contracts. All of it." Celeste emerged from cover, helping Sage to her feet. 3 days. You knew. We suspected. Couldn't move without solid evidence. Renee gestured to her team. "Take him, and sweep the building, there might be more." As operators were led away in handcuffs, Caleb finally allowed himself to breathe. His hands were shaking slightly. Adrenaline crash incoming. Sage noticed. She moved to him, and he pulled her into a fierce hug that said everything words couldn't. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah." Her voice was muffled against his shoulder. "That was insane." "That was Tuesday." He pulled back, checking her for injuries. "You did good. The NAS system thing that was smart thinking. Learn from the best." Maya was being attended by paramedics, her arm bandaged, but her expression satisfied. 62% proxy rights, she said to Celeste. "I wasn't bluffing. Your mentor set it up before he died. Said you'd need it someday." Celeste looked like she might cry. He knew. Even then he knew. Smart man. Maya winced as the paramedic tightened the bandage. "So, what now? What now?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Caleb looked at the chaos around them. Federal agents, processing evidence, building security, finally arriving to secure the scene, the distant wail of more sirens approaching. This wasn't over. Not really. Dorian Pike was one player, but the game had more pieces. Celeste seemed to read his thoughts. "Can I talk to you privately?" They moved to a quiet corner of the server room, while Renee debriefed her team. Celeste looked exhausted, her expensive blouse torn and stained, her hair falling loose from whatever elegant style it had started in. "Earlier tonight," she said quietly, "I offered you a job, head of security executive protection." "I remember." "I'm withdrawing that offer." Caleb blinked. "What?" "Because it's not what either of us needs. You're not built for corporate security theater, and I'm not built for being someone's employer." She met his eyes. "What happened tonight? You didn't just protect me. You saw the threat, anticipated moves, turned defense into counteroffense. You made me fight beside you instead of hiding behind you. Where is this going? I want to make you a different offer, not a job, a partnership." Celeste's voice gained strength. "There are hundreds of companies like Axiom, small firms, innovative startups, research labs doing important work. They're all vulnerable to exactly what Dorian tried tonight. Hostile takeovers, corporate espionage, violence, masquerading as business strategy. You want to start a security company? I want to start a foundation, Ward Armitage Foundation for Corporate Defense. We protect companies that can't afford the kind of security they need. We teach them how to identify threats. We build networks, share intelligence, create a safety net. She paused. And we do it together. Equal partners. Your tactical expertise, my resources and technology. Your instincts, my access. Caleb studied her. Why? Because tonight I watched my daughter face armed mercenaries and help you save my company. Because you could have walked away at any point and didn't. Because somewhere in this city there's another Dorian Pike targeting another CEO, and we both know how that story ends without intervention. This isn't about gratitude. No. It's about purpose. Celeste's eyes were fierce. You walked away from special operations to be there for Sage. I respect that. But what if you could still use those skills? What if protecting companies like mine meant protecting families like yours? What if we built something that made the world safer for daughters like Sage to build futures in? Caleb was silent for a long moment. Through the server room's windows, he could see the city lights flickering back to life as the power grid stabilized. Normal returning. Except nothing would be normal again. I need to think about it, he said finally. Of course. Take all the time you need. Celeste smiled slightly. Though I should mention the Foundation's first project would be developing security protocols for small quantum research firms. We'd need a smart consultant to help design the software architecture. Someone brilliant with coding and systems design. Teenage consultants are rare, but... Caleb couldn't help but smile. You're offering Sage a job. I'm offering her a future. One where what happened tonight makes her stronger, not traumatized. Celeste's expression softened. She's special, Caleb. The way she handled that crisis, the speed of her thinking, that's not just intelligence. That's courage. She gets that from her mother. Maybe, but she gets the tactical mindset from you. Renee approached, interrupting the moment. We need statements from all of you. It's going to be a long night. One thing first, Caleb said. The city grid attack Dorian mentioned. Was that real? Renee's face darkened. We intercepted chatter. He had contractors positioned at 3 power substations. If you hadn't stopped him here, if Maya hadn't produced those proxy rights, he would have given the order. Thousands could have died. Jesus, Celeste breathed. We're rounding them up now. But Caleb, this goes deeper than we thought. Dorian was working with foreign interests, state-sponsored actors who wanted Axiom's technology. This isn't over. It never is, Caleb said quietly. But as he looked at Sage, safe alive, already pulling out her laptop to help FBI tech specialists recover evidence, he realized something. Walking away from this life had been about protecting her from his past. But maybe the real protection was teaching her how to survive in a world where people like Dorian Pike existed. Maybe the offer Celeste was making wasn't just about him. It was about building something better, not for corporations, for families, for daughters who deserved futures not shadowed by violence and fear. I'll think about it, he told Celeste again. But they both knew he was already halfway to yes. The night stretched on statements, evidence processing, the slow grind of justice beginning its work. And somewhere in the building, sealed in an evidence bag, was Dorian Pike's phone, with messages that would unravel networks spanning continents. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, Caleb Ward stood with his daughter and watched federal agents clean up the aftermath of a war most people would never know had been fought. And for the first time in 6 years, he didn't feel like he was hiding from his past. He felt like he was building towards something. The foundation, the partnership, the possibility that violence could be channeled into protection, that skills learned in darkness could create light. Celeste caught his eye across the room and nodded slightly. Not pressure, just understanding. And Caleb nodded back. The conversation wasn't over. But the direction was clear. Tomorrow they'd start building. Tonight they'd survived. That was enough. The fortress turned out to be a penthouse complex on the 42nd floor of Axiom Tower. And Caleb spent the first hour doing what he did best, finding ways to kill everyone inside. Not that he planned to, but threat assessment meant imagining every angle of attack, every vulnerability, every way the fortress could become a tomb. The reinforced glass was rated for 50 caliber, but thermite would cut through it like butter. The isolated power grid had diesel backup, but the fuel lines ran through accessible maintenance corridors. 4 independent communication systems meant 4 potential infiltration vectors. "You're making that face," Sage observed, watching him trace his fingers along a window frame. She'd claimed the second bedroom, already unpacking her laptop and textbooks, with the efficiency of someone who'd moved too many times. "What face?" "The one where you're planning how to break into the place we're supposed to feel safe in." Caleb smiled faintly. "Just doing my job." "You haven't taken the job yet." "Details." He tested the panic room door concealed behind the master closet solid construction biometric lock air filtration system that could sustain 4 people for 72 hours. "This is good work, military grade." Celeste emerged from her own apartment down the hall, having changed from her ruined gown into tactical pants and a fitted black shirt. She looked younger somehow, less CEO and more operative. "Find any deal breakers?" 17, Caleb said. "Give me a week, and I'll have them down to 3. "I'll take those odds." She moved to the window, staring out at the city sprawling 42 floors below. "Dorian will make his move soon. The shareholder vote is in 10 days, but he won't wait that long. Not after tonight failed." "How do you know it failed?" Sage asked, looking up from her laptop. Celeste's smile was knife-sharp. "Because I'm still here. Because you're both still alive. In his mind, that's already a loss." She pulled out her phone, showed them a news alert. "And because this just went live." The headline screamed across the screen. "Ex-Navy hero stops CEO kidnapping billionaire, hires him on the spot." "Jesus," Caleb muttered. "I never agreed to." "I know, but the story's already out there and it serves our purposes." Celeste's expression was calculating. "If the public thinks you're my head of security, Dorian has to account for that in his planning. It forces him to adapt to rush to make mistakes. It also paints a bigger target on our backs. The target was already there, at least now we're using it as bait." A knock at the door made everyone tense. Caleb's hand moved to his weapon before he consciously decided to reach for it. Celeste checked the security monitor mounted by the entrance high-definition feed showing the hallway outside. "Maya," she said, relieved. "And she looks furious." The CFO stormed in the moment the door opened, waving a tablet like a weapon. 3 board members just submitted formal requests for our quantum encryption documentation, simultaneously, same timestamp down to the second. Caleb took the tablet, studying the access logs. "They're coordinating. Dorian's building a coalition." "Worse than that." Maya pulled up another screen. "The requests came through our legacy system, the one we retired 8 months ago when we upgraded security protocols. Someone gave them backdoor credentials," Celeste said quietly. "Someone with root access to systems that shouldn't even be active anymore." Maya's jaw was tight. "We have a mole, Celeste. Someone senior enough to have maintained legacy admin rights." Sage's fingers had already started flying across her keyboard. "Can I see the access log's full metadata?" Maya glanced at Celeste, who nodded. "Send it to her." Within 30 seconds, Sage had the data pulled up on her screen, cascading lines of code reflecting in her eyes. "This is weird. The credentials are legitimate, but the access pattern doesn't match human behavior. No hesitation, no navigation delays. It's like someone ran a script." "An automated attack." Caleb moved to look over her shoulder. "Maybe. Or someone using automation to cover their tracks." Sage isolated a section of code. "Wait. The badge ID that authorized the access, it's cloned. Same proximity card, but the RFID signature has micro variations, like someone photocopied a key instead of using the original." "Where did the clone originate?" Celeste asked. Sage's expression went cold. "The badge printer in your legal department, 3 weeks ago. Late night access by..." She looked up. By a contracted IT vendor. Hartwell Systems. The name meant nothing to Caleb, but he watched Celeste's face drain of color. Hartwell is Dorian's cousin's company. They handle overflow work when our internal IT is swamped. Then we just found your mole, Maya said. Or at least how Dorian planted one. Before anyone could respond, every light in the apartment cut out simultaneously. The emergency lighting kicked in after 3 seconds standard protocol, but those 3 seconds of absolute darkness had been enough for Caleb's combat instincts to take over. He'd already moved Sage behind him, weapon-drawn eyes scanning for threats. Rolling blackout? Celeste's voice was steady despite the tension. No. Caleb moved to the window. The blackout was spreading in a perfect circle radiating outward from Axiom Tower like a virus. This is targeted. They're testing response times mapping your backup systems. Maya was already on her phone. Building security isn't answering. Communications are being jammed. Sage held up her laptop. I'm getting massive interference across all wireless bands. Someone's running a denial of service attack on the entire building's network. Caleb's mind raced through the tactical implications. The Opera House attack had been surgical grab Celeste and extract. This was different. This was ablation warfare. Overwhelming force applied to multiple systems simultaneously to create chaos and opportunity. They're coming, he said flatly. And they're not here for extraction anymore. Celeste met his eyes. What are they here for? Elimination. He moved to the armory panel, started pulling weapons and ammunition. If they can't control you, they'll remove you from the equation permanently. Maya, how many egress points does this floor have? Main elevator, service elevator, emergency stairs, and helipad access. Then we control none of them. They'll have eyes on everything. Caleb handed weapons to Celeste, and Maya both took them without hesitation, handling the firearms with surprising competence. We need a defensible position with multiple exit options, and something Dorian can't afford to destroy. The server room, Sage said immediately. 32nd floor. All of Axiom's critical data, including the quantum encryption keys. If they damage that infrastructure, they destroy the company's value. Smart. Caleb looked at Celeste. Can you access the building's environmental systems from here? I have executive override, but with the network down. Hardline. Sage was already pulling a cable from her bag. The penthouse has a direct fiber connection to the building mainframe for emergencies. It's literally built into the walls. Show me. She led him to a concealed panel in the kitchen backup systems disguised as cabinetry. Within seconds, she had her laptop hardwired into the building's nervous system. I'm in. What do you need? Fire suppression for the server room. Can you trigger it remotely? Yeah, but that'll flood the whole floor with... Understanding dawned on her face. With gas that'll kill their thermal imaging. Dad, that's brilliant. It's also temporary. He checked his weapons magazine, 15 rounds, 1 in the chamber. Not enough for a sustained firefight. Stage it, but don't activate yet. We need to be in position first. His phone buzzed. Text from Renee Park. Federal response delayed. Multiple false active shooter reports across the city, stretching resources. You're on your own for 15 to 20 minutes. Stay alive. 20 minutes. An eternity in tactical terms. Service elevator, Caleb decided. It's slower, more vulnerable, but they'll expect us to use the stairs. We move now while they're still positioning. They left the apartment as a unit, Caleb on point with Maya covering their 6. The emergency lighting made everything look apocalyptic, shadows jumping with each step. The service elevator was at the end of a long corridor that offered zero cover, a kill zone if anyone was watching. Caleb raised his fist. Everyone stopped. He closed his eyes, listening. The building's ambient sounds had changed. The normal hum of HVAC systems was missing, replaced by the low rumble of diesel generators struggling to maintain emergency power. But underneath that, something else. The almost imperceptible whisper of tactical radio communications bleeding through active suppression. They were already in the building. "Change of plans," Caleb whispered. "Elevator shaft, not the car. We climb." "That's 12 floors," Maya hissed. "It's 12 floors they won't expect." He was already moving to the service panel beside the elevator doors, using a multi-tool from his pocket to pry it open. The maintenance ladder inside was old industrial steel, probably hadn't been used in years except by repair crews. "Sage goes first," Caleb ordered. "Then Celeste, then Maya. I'll cover from above." "From above?" Celeste's eyes widened. "You'll be the last one in. If they come. Then I buy you time to get to safety. Now move." Sage didn't argue. She'd learned when her father used that tone that debate was futile. She swung into the shaft with surprising agility, finding footholds on the ladder with the confidence of youth. Celeste followed, then Maya, each descent marked by the soft creak of old metal. Caleb came last, pulling the panel closed behind him, just as boots thundered down the corridor outside. The shaft was a vertical tomb of darkness and cables. Sage's descent created tiny metallic echoes that seemed deafening in the enclosed space. Caleb counted floors by the numbers painted on the shaft walls: 41, 40, 39. At 35, he heard voices above. They'd discovered the open panel. "Down," he breathed. "Faster." They accelerated their descent, discipline giving way to controlled urgency. The 32nd floor appeared below like salvation, and Caleb reached past Sage to trigger the manual release mechanism. The doors ground open with a shriek that echoed up the shaft. They tumbled into the corridor, and Caleb immediately oriented himself. The server room was West Corridor Section B, behind a security door that should have been locked and armed. Should have been. The door hung open, sparks cascading from the keycard reader where someone had bypassed the electronics with brutal efficiency. "They beat us here," Maya breathed. "No." Caleb studied the damage. This was done from inside. Someone with credentials opened it, then disabled the lock to prevent it from securing again. Celeste's face went white. "The vendor. Hartwell Systems." "Your inside man." Caleb checked his weapon. "Which means he might still be in there." A sound from above the elevator shaft, filling with tactical communications. They'd been followed. No choice. Forward into potential hostile contact, or back into confirmed hostiles. "Server room," Caleb decided. "Now." They breached through the damaged security door into the server room's Arctic environment. Rows of black towers hummed with computational power LED indicators, creating a galaxy of light in the darkness. The cold hit like a physical force necessary for keeping the quantum processors from overheating. "Sage," Caleb said quietly. "You know this room's layout. Better than my own bedroom." "Good. Find the main terminal. Be ready to lock down everything if I give the word." He looked at Celeste and Maya. "You two find cover. Stay low, stay quiet. If shooting starts, you return fire but you don't play hero. Understood?" They nodded. The server room stretched deep into the building, rows upon rows of computational power worth billions. Caleb moved between them like a ghost weapon, up ears, straining for any sound that didn't belong. He found the contractor in the third row working frantically at a terminal. Young guy, mid-20s, with the kind of nervous energy that said he knew he was in over his head. He didn't hear Caleb approach until the gun pressed against the base of his skull. "Hands where I can see them," Caleb said softly. "Slowly." The contractor froze, then slowly raised his hands. "Don't shoot, please. They said nobody would get hurt." They lied. "What did they have you do?" Just open the door. Disable the lock. Give them access to—" He gestured at the terminal. "To the quantum encryption keys. That's all. I swear." "Who's they?" "I don't know names. Just a guy from the board. Said it was authorized. Said Ms. Armitage approved the access for emergency backup purposes." Caleb's jaw tightened. Dorian had played this beautifully. Use a low-level contractor, feed him plausible lies, make him the patsy when everything went south. "How many operators in the building?" Caleb asked. "I don't know, Caleb pressed the gun harder. "How many?" 8. maybe 9. They said they were security doing a penetration test. I didn't know it was... The main entrance exploded inward. Not literally no breaching charges, just overwhelming force applied to the already damaged door. 3 operators in full tactical gear flooded through thermal optics mounted weapons up. Caleb moved on pure instinct. He grabbed the contractor using him as a human shield, while simultaneously triggering his radio to Sage fire suppression. Now. Gas flooded the room in seconds, cold and dense, dropping the temperature another 20 degrees and turning the air into white fog. The thermal imaging equipment became useless heat signatures lost in the chaos of suppression system activation. Caleb shoved the contractor toward cover and dropped flat as gunfire erupted. Suppressed rounds sparked off server towers, tracers cutting through the fog like laser light shows. He returned fire-controlled bursts aiming by sound rather than sight. One operator went down with a grunt of pain. The others scattered, losing their tactical cohesion in the confusion. Caleb, Celeste's voice somewhere in the fog. We need to lock down the data. If they access those encryption keys. Sage, Caleb called. Can you secure the system remotely? Working on it. Her voice came from deeper in the room, fingers flying across her keyboard. I need 90 seconds. 90 seconds. A lifetime. More operators were coming through the main entrance, now 4 or 5. And Caleb realized with cold certainty that his initial assessment had been optimistic. They weren't outnumbered 8-4. They were outnumbered at least 12-4. And then the fog began to dissipate, pulled away by the server room's massive ventilation system, designed to prevent exactly this kind of environmental chaos. Visibility returned, and with it, vulnerability. Caleb saw Maya pinned down behind a server bank, her makeshift position offering minimal cover. Celeste was 30 feet away, trying to provide suppressing fire, but clearly running low on ammunition. Sage was exposed at the terminal, still typing frantically. The tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly. And that's when he heard the voice. Caleb Ward. The speaker used a wireless PA system sound echoing through the server room from multiple directions. Been a long time, brother. Caleb's blood went cold. He knew that voice. Remembered it from a dozen operations in places that officially didn't exist, from missions that would never appear in any record. Marcus Rook, Caleb said quietly. I was hoping you'd retired. Retired in this economy. Rook stepped into view from behind a server bank weapon, lowered but ready. He looked older than Caleb remembered, lines etched deeper, but the eyes were the same professional, calculating, empty of sentiment. Heard you went civilian. Security guard at a mall checking receipts and breaking up teenage shoplifters. Hell of a step down. I had my reasons. Yeah, I heard about those too. Rook's gaze shifted to where Sage was still typing, oblivious to the standoff developing. Pretty girl. Smart from what I'm told. She the reason you walked away? Don't. Caleb's voice carried every ounce of lethal intent he'd ever possessed. Don't even think about it. Easy, brother. I'm not here for the kid. I'm here for the CEO and the data. Rook gestured, and his team materialized from the fog, like ghosts, 6 operators, all with weapons trained on Caleb's position. But I'd rather not kill you. We went through Kandahar together. That ought to count for something. It counted right up until you took a contract on an innocent woman. Innocent. Rook laughed, the sound bitter. Nobody in this room is innocent, Caleb. Not her, not you, not me. We're all just trying to survive in a world that doesn't give a damn. The sooner you accept that, the easier this gets. Caleb's mind raced through options. 6 weapons trained on him. Minimal cover, Sage still exposed at the terminal. The math was brutal. You don't have to do this, Caleb said, buying time. Whatever Dorian's paying, it's not about the money. Rook's expression shifted, something almost like regret crossing his features. Though it's pretty good money. It's about what happens if I don't deliver. Dorian Pike doesn't accept failure, and he's got reach. My team, our families, he's made it clear what the consequences are. Then you're being used, just like that contractor. We're all being used. Question is whether we get paid for it. Rook raised his weapon slightly. So here's how this goes. You stand down, I take Ms. Armitage and the encryption keys, and everyone else walks away. Your daughter included. Or you play hero, and we turn this server room into a tomb. Your choice, brother. Sage's voice cut through the tension. Done, data's locked down, and transferred to the offline NAS. The quantum keys are encrypted with a cipher that'll take their quantum computers about 300 years to crack. Rook's expression darkened. That's unfortunate. It's also irreversible. Sage continued, still typing. So, unless you want to leave here empty-handed, you might want to reconsider your strategy. Caleb wanted to tell her to stop talking to not antagonize the armed mercenaries, but part of him swelled with fierce pride. His daughter had just nullified a corporate espionage operation worth billions, and she'd done it while staring down gun barrels. She definitely got that from her mother. Rook's radio crackled. A voice filtered through tinny and distorted. Abort. Package is compromised. Repeat abort and extract. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Rook lowered his weapon with a sigh that seemed to come from somewhere deep and tired. Your lucky day, Ward. Boss says to cut losses. He looked at his team. Pull out. Standard extraction. You're just leaving. Celeste's voice was sharp with disbelief. We're professionals, Ms. Armitage. We complete objectives, or we withdraw when objectives become impossible. Unlike some people, we don't waste time on lost causes. Rook's eyes found Caleb again. But this isn't over. Dorian's got other plays. And next time, you might not have your daughter's magic fingers to save you. There won't be a next time, Caleb said quietly. Because I'm going to end this. You really think you can take down Dorian Pike? He's got resources you can't even imagine. Political connections, foreign backing infrastructure access that could darken this entire city. I've heard the threats. Grid attacks, infrastructure, sabotage, all of it. Caleb's voice was cold. Tell Dorian something for me. Tell him if he touches my daughter, if he comes near my family again, resources won't matter. Connections won't matter. I'll find him, and what happens next won't make the news because there won't be enough left to identify. Rook studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I'll pass that along. For what it's worth, I believe you. He gestured to his team. Move out. They withdrew with professional efficiency, smoke grenades covering their retreat through the service corridors. Within 90 seconds, the server room was quiet, except for the hum of machinery and the soft hiss of emergency ventilation, clearing the last of the suppression gas. Caleb moved immediately to Sage, checking her for injuries. You okay? Yeah. Terrified but okay. She looked up at him. Dad, that guy, you knew him? Long time ago, different life. He seemed like he respected you. Respect doesn't mean much when you're on opposite sides of a barrel. Caleb pulled her into a brief hug, then moved to check on Celeste and Maya. The CFO was nursing her arm where a round had grazed her, painful but not serious. Celeste was on her phone trying to reach building security, but the networks were still jammed. They'll be back, Celeste said quietly. You know that, right? This was just the opening move. I know. Caleb moved to the terminal where Sage had worked her magic. But now we know what Dorian's really after. Not just control of the company, the quantum encryption technology itself. He wants to sell it. To who? Highest bidder, foreign governments, criminal organizations, whoever's willing to pay. He looked at the contractor still cowering behind a server bank. Starting with you. Tell me everything about your contact with Dorian's people. Every conversation, every instruction, every detail. The contractor talked for 15 minutes straight, spilling everything he knew. Most of it was operational details, access codes, security protocols, building schematics. But buried in the technical information was a single phrase that made Caleb's blood run cold. Phase 2, the contractor said nervously. That's what they kept saying. Like this was just the first part of something bigger. "What's Phase 2? Celeste demanded. "I don't know, I swear. They just said if the server room grab didn't work, Phase 2 would make me wish I'd never been born." Caleb's phone buzzed finally, network connectivity returning as the jamming ceased. Multiple texts from Renee Park, increasingly urgent, FBI en route. Don't engage. Intercepted communications. Dorian has contingency plans. Urgent power grid threat is real. They have contractors positioned at substations. If Phase 1 fails, Phase 2 targets city infrastructure. ETA 4 minutes. Secure the location and wait for us. 4 minutes. The world could end in 4 minutes. Caleb showed the messages to Celeste. Her face went white. He'd really do it. Kill thousands of people just to frame Axiom. He's desperate. Desperate people do unforgivable things. Caleb made a decision. We need to move. This building isn't safe anymore. If Dorian's willing to attack infrastructure, he won't hesitate to bring down the whole tower. Where do we go? Maya asked. The safe house. The one I set up before I even agreed to this job. Caleb had prepared for this possibility, paranoia as survival tool. A small apartment in an anonymous building across the city, registered under a false name, stocked with supplies and weapons. We go dark, regroup, and hit back before Dorian can launch Phase 2. Sage was already packing her laptop. What about the FBI? Don't we wait for... The motion sensors in the corridor outside began screaming. Not the normal alert, a continuous wail that meant the perimeter had been breached from multiple directions simultaneously. Caleb's tactical display showed red indicators flooding the building. Ground floor, 3rd floor, 10th floor, 15th floor. They were coming from everywhere at once. They changed tactics, he said flatly. This isn't extraction anymore. This is extermination. Celeste's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered on speaker. Dorian Pike's voice filled the room, smooth and utterly unconcerned. Good evening, Ms. Armitage. I trust you're enjoying your fortress? What do you want, Dorian? What I've always wanted. Your resignation. Your company. Your technology. But since you've proven remarkably stubborn, I'm prepared to offer new terms. I'm listening. You have 2 options. Option 1. You walk out of that building right now, sign the resignation papers my lawyers have prepared. Recommend me as interim CEO, and this all ends quietly. You get to keep your reputation, your freedom, and your life. And Option 2. Option 2 is already in motion. My contractors are positioned at 3 major power substations. In approximately 6 minutes, they'll execute a coordinated attack that will darken most of this city for days. Traffic systems will fail. Hospitals will lose power. People will die. And the forensic evidence will conclusively prove that Axiom's quantum encryption systems were used as the attack vector. Dorian's voice took on a harder edge. You'll be vilified. The company will be dismantled by federal regulators. Everything you've built will be destroyed, and you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Silence filled the room. Unless, Dorian continued, you choose Option 1. Walk away, sign the papers, save thousands of lives. It's really very simple. Caleb could see Celeste's hands shaking. The weight of the decision, her company versus innocent lives, pressing down like a physical force. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. There's a 3rd option, Dorian. I don't recall offering one. The one where I tell you to go to hell, we stop your grid attack, and I make sure you spend the next 40 years in a federal prison. She ended the call, then looked at Caleb. Can we stop Phase 2? Maybe, if we move fast and get lucky. I'll take those odds. Renee Park's voice crackled over Caleb's phone. We're in the lobby. Where are you? Server room, 32nd floor. We need immediate transport to 3 locations. Pike has contractors at power substations preparing to trigger a grid attack. How long do we have? 5 minutes. Maybe less. Jesus Christ. Renee was already barking orders to her team. Okay, I'm splitting forces. Half with me to extract you, half to the substations. But Caleb, there's something else. We just got security footage from your safe house. The words hit like a gut punch. What? Motion sensors tripped. Someone's inside the perimeter. The safe house. The place he'd set up as their last refuge. Compromised. Caleb looked at Sage, at Celeste, at Maya. They were boxed in. Hostiles in the building, their safe location compromised, and a ticking clock on a city-wide catastrophe. He'd faced worse odds before, but never with so much to lose. How long ago? Caleb's voice was ice phone pressed to his ear as Renee delivered the worst news possible. Motion sensors at your safe house triggered 40 minutes ago. We pulled the feed, 2 hostiles, professional gear, systematic sweep. They're waiting for you. Sage's face went pale. Maya gripped her weapon tighter. Celeste closed her eyes for a heartbeat, then opened them with renewed steel. Then we don't go there, Caleb said simply. We go analog. No digital footprint, no predictable patterns. We move like ghosts until this is over. Caleb, you've got a 16-year-old girl with you. You can't just watch me. He ended the call, already moving toward the server room's secondary exit. Everyone ditch your phones. Now. Anything with GPS wireless. Anything that can be tracked. My entire life is on this phone, Maya protested. Your entire life ends if Dorian can track you. Caleb pulled a burner phone from his pocket, one of 3 he'd purchased the day after the Opera House incident, because paranoia was just pattern recognition for the prepared. We communicate on these. One-time use encrypted, then destroyed. Sage hesitated, clutching her laptop like a lifeline. Dad, I have research on here. Code that could... Can you air-gap it? Transfer everything to an external drive with no network capability. Her fingers were already moving. Give me 90 seconds. They didn't have 90 seconds, but Caleb gave them anyway because his daughter's brain was worth more than any weapon in his arsenal. While she worked, he positioned himself at the door, covering their only vulnerable approach vector. Celeste moved beside him. If we go dark, we can't coordinate with the FBI. We'll be on our own against the grid attack. We're already on our own. Renee's splitting her forces between extraction and the substations. Even with federal resources, 3 targets means thin coverage. He checked his weapon, 9 rounds left. Dorian's counting on chaos. He wants everyone reacting, chasing fires, making mistakes. So what do? We stop reacting. We take the initiative. Caleb's mind was racing through tactical scenarios, weighing options like a combat calculator. Sage, how fast can you locate those substations if you have network access? Public infrastructure records. Maybe 5 minutes if I can get to a terminal. Not good enough. We need... His burner phone buzzed. Unknown number, but the message made his blood run cold. Navy brat uses old playbook. Mountain House. County Route 17. Remember Peshawar. Same rules. Rook. The message deleted itself 3 seconds after being read. What? Celeste saw his expression shift. Rook just gave me a location. Caleb stared at the blank screen. And a warning. Why would he help us? Because he owes me, or because he's setting a trap? Maybe both. The Peshawar reference wasn't random. It was a very specific operation where Caleb had pulled Rook's team out of an ambush that should have killed them all. The rules had been simple: trust, nobody verify everything, and always have an exit strategy. Dad, Sage had her laptop closed, external drive secured. What's the Mountain House? My backup plan for the backup plan. Caleb had purchased the property 6 months after his wife died, when single parenthood meant preparing for every possible disaster. An old ranger station in the Cascades off-grid, accessible only by a logging road that didn't appear on most maps. It's analog heaven. No power grid, no internet, no way to track us digitally. And if Rook knows about it, then he's either giving us a genuine escape route or telling me exactly where the trap is. Caleb looked at Celeste. Either way, it's our best move. The substations are FBI's problem now. Our problem is surviving the next 6 hours until Dorian's timeline collapses. Maya shook her head. You're talking about running, hiding, while Dorian destroys everything. I'm talking about surviving to fight tomorrow. Caleb's voice was firm. You can't stop a coup if you're dead. The lights in the server room flickered once, twice, then stabilized. The building's backup power was struggling under the strain of emergency systems fighting hostile control. We move now, Caleb decided. Service stairs, not the elevators. Stay tight, stay quiet. If we encounter hostiles, I engage while you three run. No arguments. Sage opened her mouth to protest, but Celeste put a hand on her shoulder. He's right. We're the objective. He's the weapon. Trust him. They moved through the server room's emergency exit into a stairwell that smelled like concrete and fear. Caleb took point weapon up each landing, a potential kill zone. The emergency lighting cast everything in shades of red and shadow. They'd descended 3 floors when he heard it, the soft metallic click of a magazine being seated. Someone was waiting on the landing below, positioned for an ambush. Caleb held up his fist. Everyone froze. He couldn't go down, that was suicide. Couldn't go up, they'd already passed the point of no return. Couldn't stay. Eventually the hostiles would sweep through and find them. So, he did the unexpected. He went sideways. The fire door on their current landing led to the 29th floor offices, executive level, empty at this hour, but with access to multiple egress points, including the parking garage's executive elevator. Caleb tested the door handle. Locked, but he'd expected that. Sage, your laptop. Can you bypass electronic locks? She looked at him like he'd asked if she could breathe. Does the Pope wear a funny hat? Within 30 seconds, she had a cable running from her laptop to the door's access panel. Code scrolled across her screen faster than Caleb could follow, and then the lock clicked open with a sound like permission being granted. Remind me to teach you to pick old-fashioned locks too, Caleb muttered. Technology fails. Lockpicks don't. They slipped through into a maze of cubicles and glass-walled offices. The emergency lighting here was sporadic, creating pools of darkness between islands of blood-red illumination. Caleb moved through it like a predator in familiar territory, though he'd never been on this floor before. Offices were offices, predictable, standardized, easy to navigate if you understood the patterns. The parking garage elevator was on the far side, near what looked like a break room. They were halfway there when Caleb's instincts screamed warning. The silence was wrong. Too complete. Even in an emergency, buildings made noise, HVAC structural settling, distant sounds bleeding through walls. This was the silence of something holding its breath. Down, Caleb barked. The window behind them exploded inward as something crashed through, not a person, a drone. Small quadcopter design with a camera and something else. Something that beeped. Caleb's combat experience screamed one word: explosive. He grabbed Sage, diving behind a desk cluster as the drone detonated. Not a large charge shaped for psychological impact rather than killing, but the blast was enough to shred the cubicles they'd been standing in and set off every fire alarm in the building. Sprinklers activated, drenching everything in cold water. The emergency lighting flickered and died, plunging them into darkness, broken only by the drone's burning wreckage. Everyone okay? Caleb's voice cut through the chaos. Affirmatives came back shaky but alive. Maya was cursing in Spanish. Celeste was coughing from the smoke, but Sage, his daughter, was already moving, laptop abandoned, but the external drive secure in her jacket pocket. That was a diversion, Caleb said, because it was obvious. The real attack would come from the service shaft, the one they'd avoided because it was too obvious. They were coming through it now, tactical teams breaching from maintenance access points. Caleb could hear the coordinated movements, the professional silence of operators who knew their business. Corridor hold, he said quietly. Celeste, Maya, take Sage and move toward that break room. There should be a service elevator for food deliveries. Bypass the locks, get to the parking garage, steal a car. Don't wait for me. We're not leaving you, Sage said fiercely. Yes, you are. Because someone needs to live long enough to stop Dorian, and I'm the expendable one. Caleb checked his weapon 9 rounds. Enough for maybe 3 hostiles if he was lucky. I'll hold them here. Give you time. Caleb. Celeste started. Go. Now. That's not a request. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Celeste grabbed Sage's arm with surprising strength and pulled her toward the break room. Maya followed, casting one last look at Caleb that said everything words couldn't. Caleb positioned himself in the corridor bottleneck, using overturned desks and filing cabinets as improvised cover. The sprinklers had turned the floor into a slick battlefield visibility, reduced to maybe 20 feet in the darkness and water. The first hostile came through, fast weapon sweeping for targets. Caleb dropped him with a double tap that was more instinct than aim. 1 down. 2 more followed, moving as a team. Caleb engaged, trading fire in the kind of close-quarters nightmare that made training instructors weep. He took one in the shoulder, hot pain but functional, and put down both hostiles with his last rounds. Empty weapon. 3 bodies. And footsteps still coming. Caleb dropped the gun and pulled his knife, a fixed blade he'd carried since his Navy days, edge honed to surgical sharpness. Not his preferred tool, but knives didn't run out of ammunition. The 4th hostile rounded the corner, and Caleb moved like violence given form. The fight was brutal, silent over in seconds. The hostile went down bleeding from a throat wound that would kill in minutes. Caleb retrieved the man's weapon, a compact MP5 familiar from 100 operations, and kept moving toward where Celeste and the others had disappeared. The break room was empty. Good. They'd followed instructions. The service elevator door hung open, manual override engaged. Very good. His burner phone buzzed again. Text from a number he didn't recognize. Parking garage is clean. Blue sedan, level 3, keys under floor mat. Go. Our Rook was helping them. Actually helping them. The cognitive dissonance was staggering, but Caleb didn't have time to process it. He moved to the elevator shaft, found the ladder, and descended with controlled urgency. 3 levels down, he heard voices. English, but wrong accents. Eastern European, maybe Russian. More contractors, and these didn't sound like Rook's team. Dorian was using multiple mercenary groups. Smart. Kept any single team from knowing the full operation. But it also meant coordination problems, communication gaps. Caleb could exploit that. He keyed the MP5's radio to the frequency he'd heard the earlier team using. Alpha team to all units. Target secured, parking level 3. Moving to extraction. Silence for 3 seconds. Then, copy Alpha. Confirm package identity. Armitage and 2 companions. Ward is down, corridor firefight. Another pause. Longer this time. Alpha authenticate with code phrase. Caleb had no idea what the code phrase was. Authentication corrupted. Taking heavy fire, radio damaged. Requesting immediate. The radio went dead. They'd cut him off, realized the deception. But he'd bought 30 seconds of confusion, and that was enough. He found Celeste, Maya, and Sage crouched behind concrete pillars on level 3, exactly where Rook's message had indicated. The blue sedan sat 30 feet away, unmarked civilian plates. You're bleeding, Sage said the moment she saw him. Shoulder wound. Missed the important bits. Caleb glanced at the blood soaking his shirt, made a tactical assessment. Mobility's fine. We move now. They piled into the sedan, Caleb driving Celeste, shotgun Maya, and Sage in back. Keys were exactly where promised. The engine turned over with a purr that suggested significant modifications under the hood. This is not a stock sedan, Maya observed. No, it's not. Caleb shifted into gear. Rook's giving us an escape vehicle. Question is why? Maybe he's not completely evil, Sage suggested. Nobody's completely anything. Caleb navigated toward the garage exit, expecting resistance, finding none. But people are complicated. Rook and I have history. Sometimes history matters more than money. They emerged from the parking garage into a city that looked wrong. The power outage had spread further whole blocks. Dark traffic lights dead only emergency vehicles moving with any purpose. Dorian's Phase 2 was already beginning. Caleb's burner phone rang. He answered on speaker. Renee Park's voice was tight with controlled panic. "Where are you?" "Clear of Axiom Tower. Heading north on—" He caught himself. "Heading to a safe location. What's the situation with the substations?" "We stopped 2 of the attacks, but the 3rd team got away. They're mobile and we have reason to believe they're targeting alternative infrastructure, such as cellular networks, internet backbone facilities. They're going after communications, not just power. If they succeed, this city goes dark in every sense." Maya leaned forward. "If the communications infrastructure fails, financial markets can't operate. Banks can't process transactions. We're talking economic collapse in addition to the chaos." "Dorian's scorched earth," Celeste said quietly. "If he can't have Axiom, he'll burn everything else." Caleb's combat mind shifted gears, analyzing the new threat matrix. "Renee, what's your asset distribution?" "FBI teams at the 2 secured substations. Local PD coordinating evacuations, and about 6 agents with me trying to track the 3rd team. We're stretched paper thin." "You need to pull your people back. Let the 3rd team complete their objective." Silence on the line. Then, "Did you just suggest I let domestic terrorists destroy critical infrastructure?" "I'm suggesting you let them think they're succeeding while you prepare to take them in one coordinated strike." Caleb's mind was 3 moves ahead now. "They're following a timeline. If we disrupt it, they'll scatter and go to ground. But if we let them proceed to their final objective and intercept there, we get everyone at once," Renee finished. Understanding dawned. "But Caleb, if we wait too long—" "You don't wait. You prepare. Get your teams positioned around likely targets. The moment they commit, you move." He glanced at Celeste. "And we need leverage against Dorian. Something that breaks his narrative before he can spin this." "The contractor," Maya said suddenly. "The IT guy from Hartwell Systems. He was terrified. If we can get him to flip—" "He already did." Celeste was checking something on her phone, a burner Caleb noted good operational security. "I just got a message from my attorney. The contractor walked into the FBI field office 20 minutes ago with a lawyer and a sworn affidavit. He's cooperating fully." "Smart guy," Caleb said. Realized being a patsy for domestic terrorism was worse than breach of contract. The burner phone buzzed again. This time, a video file sender unknown. Caleb pulled over, let it download. The video was edited footage from the Axiom Tower confrontation. But not the real footage. This was cut and spliced to make it look like Caleb had initiated violence, like he'd fired on security personnel without provocation. The timestamp was altered. The audio was manipulated. "Dorian's insurance policy," Celeste breathed. "He's going to claim you're the aggressor, that I hired a violent mercenary who attacked my own people. And in the chaos of the grid attack, nobody will question it," Maya added. "They'll just see the footage and assume." Sage was already plugging her laptop into the car's power outlet. "Give me the video file. I can run forensic analysis, prove it's been edited." "How long?" Caleb asked. "For basic metadata check, 20 minutes. For full frame-by-frame analysis that would hold up in court, 3 hours. They didn't have 3 hours. The grid attack was imminent. Dorian's smear campaign was launching, and somewhere in the city, a 3rd team of contractors was preparing to darken the communications infrastructure. "Sage, do the 20-minute version," Caleb decided. "Maya, contact whoever you trust in Axiom's legal department. Get ahead of this. Celeste." "I'm calling a press conference." Celeste's voice was steel. "Right now. Live stream, no filter, just me talking directly to our employees and shareholders." "That's exactly what Dorian wants. He'll twist anything you say. Then I'll make it impossible to twist. She was already dialing. I'm not hiding anymore, Caleb. This ends tonight. The press conference was held from the car, Celeste using her phone to stream directly to Axiom's employee portal and her personal social media. No professional lighting, no script, just a woman who'd been hunted for 48 hours and was done being prey. I'm Celeste Armitage, she began, and her voice carried the kind of raw authenticity that no amount of media training could manufacture. And for the past 2 days, someone on my own board of directors has been trying to kill me. She told everything. The kidnapping attempt, the server room invasion, the contractors, the grid attack. She named Dorian Pike, specifically cited the sworn affidavit from the Hartwell Systems contractor, and laid out exactly how a hostile takeover had become domestic terrorism. I know how this sounds, she continued. Corporate CEO claiming persecution. But right now, there are teams in this city preparing to attack infrastructure that keeps hospitals running, keeps traffic lights functioning, keeps people safe. And they're doing it in my company's name, using my technology as a weapon. The raw emotion in her voice was impossible to fake. Caleb found himself transfixed, watching a billionaire CEO strip away every layer of polish and speak like a human being who'd seen her world burn. So I'm asking for help, Celeste said simply. If you're an Axiom employee, if you've worked with me, if you know what we really stand for, speak up. Share this. Make sure the truth gets out before the lies take hold. Because in about 30 minutes, this city is going to experience something terrible. And when it does, I need you all to remember who's really responsible. She ended the stream. The phone immediately began buzzing with responses. Hundreds, then thousands employees and colleagues sharing her message, amplifying it across every platform. That was either brilliant or suicidal, Maya said. It was necessary. Celeste met Caleb's eyes. We can't win this with tactics alone. We need public opinion, shareholder support, the truth out there before Dorian can bury it. Caleb's burner rang. Renee again. Please tell me you just saw what I saw. The press conference. Yeah. It's going viral. Every news outlet in the city is picking it up. And Caleb, we just intercepted a call from Dorian. He's panicking. The narrative was supposed to be his to control, and Armitage just burned it down. So what's he doing? Accelerating everything. The third team got new orders. They're hitting all remaining targets simultaneously within the next 15 minutes. Renee's voice was grim. We're out of time. Then we end this. Caleb was already plotting routes in his head. Renee, I need locations for every possible communications target in the city. I'll send them to your burner. But Caleb, what are you planning? Something stupid. He ended the call. Looked at Celeste, at Maya, at Sage in the rearview mirror. I'm about to ask you all to trust me on something that might get us killed. We're already trusting you, Sage pointed out. Haven't died yet. Yet being the operative word. Caleb's phone buzzed Renee's data dump, 12 potential targets scattered across the city. Dorian's teams are going to hit these locations, but they're coordinating, which means they're communicating, which means they have a central command node somewhere. Find the node you find Dorian, Maya said, or at least his operational center. Caleb studied the map looking for patterns. Sage, can you track radio frequencies? Find concentrations of encrypted tactical communications. With the right equipment, yeah, but I'd need... She paused. Wait, Dad, there's a ham radio enthusiast club near the university. They have signal tracking gear. If we could access their equipment, then you could find Dorian's command center. Caleb was already turning the car. Where Sage gave directions. They drove through a city, teetering on the edge of chaos, police lights, everywhere people evacuating from buildings in response to bomb threats that were probably false but felt real enough. Dorian had weaponized fear, and fear was spreading faster than any actual attack. The Ham Radio Club was housed in a small building near campus, locked but not secured. Caleb had them inside in 90 seconds. Sage went straight to the equipment fingers flying across unfamiliar controls with the adaptability of digital natives who understood systems intuitively. "Got something," she said after 5 minutes of intense focus. Encrypted burst transmissions repeating pattern originating from. She pulled up a map. The old district courthouse. Building's been abandoned for 3 years, but someone's using it as a relay station. "That's Dorian's command center," Celeste said with certainty. "The courthouse has infrastructure connections to the old city grid. He'd have access to everything from there." Caleb's burner rang. Unknown number. He answered. "Brother." Rook's voice. "You figured it out yet?" "The courthouse. You're there, aren't you?" "Was. Pulled my team out 30 minutes ago." Rook's tone was strange, almost regretful. "I owe you for Peshawar. That debt's paid now. But Caleb, you need to know something. Dorian's final order. It's not just infrastructure. It's a kill order. On Armitage. On you. On anyone who gets in the way." I figured. "No, you don't understand. He's not paying us anymore. He's paying someone else. Someone who doesn't operate by the same rules." A pause. "Someone who'll kill the girl too, just to make a point." Caleb's blood went ice cold. "Who?" "Former Spetsnaz. Goes by Volkov. He's already in position at the courthouse with a 6-man team. You go in there, you're not coming out." "Then I'll make sure I take Dorian with me." "Don't be stupid. You've got a daughter. Priorities, brother." "My priority is making sure she lives in a world where men like Dorian can't do this again." Caleb looked at Sage through the rearview mirror. "Thanks for the intel, Rook. Debt's paid. We're square." "Yeah, we're square." Rook hung up. Caleb sat in the silence of the ham radio club surrounded by 3 women looking at him with varying degrees of concern and determination. "So," Maya said finally, "we're assaulting a fortified position held by professional killers to stop a madman from destroying a city and framing us for it. Do I have that right?" "More or less." "Just checking." She smiled grimly. "I was a Marine before I became a CFO. Thought you should know." Caleb blinked. "Seriously?" "Finance officer, but yeah, 20 years ago. I'm rusty, but I can still shoot straight." "Dad," Sage said quietly, "I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about sending me somewhere safe while you 3 go be heroes. Don't." "Sage, don't. I'm the only one who can crack Dorian's systems if you get inside. I'm the only one who can prove the grid attack came from him and not Axiom. You need me." Her voice was steady despite the fear in her eyes. "And I need to see this through. Mom would have wanted me to be brave." The invocation of her mother hit Caleb like a physical blow. His wife had been the brave one, the one who'd faced terminal cancer with grace and fought until the last breath. And here was their daughter carrying that same courage. "Okay," Caleb said quietly. "But you stay with me, every second. You don't move unless I move you. Understood?" "Understood." He looked at Celeste. "You're the prize. Dorian wants you specifically, which makes you the bait and the target simultaneously." "I know. So let's use that." Her expression was fierce. "We go in. I challenge Dorian directly. While he's focused on me, you shut down his operation." "That's not much of a plan." "It's the plan we've got." Celeste checked the weapon Caleb had given her hours ago, still loaded, safety on ready. "And we're out of time." As if on cue, the lights in the ham radio club flickered, then died. Emergency lighting kicked in, but through the windows they could see whole city blocks going dark in a spreading wave. Phase 2 had begun. Dorian had triggered the grid attack. And somewhere in an abandoned courthouse, he was watching his plan unfold, confident that chaos would protect him. He was about to learn that chaos cut both ways. The old district courthouse loomed against the darkening sky, like a monument to forgotten justice. Its neoclassical columns casting shadows that seemed to writhe in the emergency lighting from surrounding buildings. Caleb studied it from 3 blocks away, using binoculars salvaged from the ham radio club, counting exit points and probable defensive positions. 6 visible sightlines, probably 8 we can't see, he murmured. Volkov's people will have the high ground interlocking fields of fire. This is a kill box. So we don't walk into it, Maya said. She'd found a tactical vest somewhere in the club, probably left by a survivalist hobbyist, and wore it with the comfortable familiarity of someone who'd done this before. We make them come to us. How? Celeste asked. Caleb smiled grimly. We give Dorian what he wants. You, surrendering, asking to negotiate. Absolutely not, Sage said immediately. Let me finish. Caleb kept his eyes on the courthouse. Celeste approaches under a white flag, metaphorically speaking. She's wired for sound and video streaming everything live. Dorian can't kill her on camera without destroying his entire narrative. Meanwhile, Maya and I enter through the old utility tunnels. What utility tunnels? Maya asked. The ones built during Prohibition for moving bootleg liquor. They connect the courthouse to 3 surrounding buildings. He'd memorized the city's historical infrastructure years ago, the kind of obsessive preparation that had kept him alive through a dozen deployments. Sage, you stay in the car with the FBI's direct line. Anything goes wrong, you call it in. Dad, non-negotiable. His voice was gentle but absolute. I need you alive more than I need you beside me. The look Sage gave him was pure stubborn determination mixed with understanding. She knew he was right even if she hated it. Fine. But I'm monitoring everything. First sign of trouble, I'm calling in the cavalry. That's the plan. Caleb checked his weapon one more time, the MP5 from earlier, plus a backup pistol and spare magazines he'd acquired through means he didn't want to examine too closely. Celeste, you ready for this? She'd gone pale but determined. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals with hostile boards. I can handle one delusional director. The difference is, those boards didn't have Spetsnaz operators backing them up. Then it's a good thing I have you. Celeste pulled out her phone, the burner now rigged with a live stream app that would broadcast to every major platform simultaneously. Once I'm inside, how long do you need? 10 minutes to reach Dorian's command center. 5 minutes to shut down the grid attack. 2 minutes to secure him for federal custody. Caleb's mental clock was already running. Total elapsed time 17 minutes. Can you stall him that long? I can talk to anyone about anything for 17 minutes. That's basically my job description. Maya had found the utility tunnel entrance in a building 2 blocks east, a rusted grate hidden behind dumpsters that hadn't been moved in decades. She pried it open with a crowbar from the sedan's trunk, revealing a dark shaft that smelled like century-old mistakes. After you, she said to Caleb. They descended into darkness that pressed in like physical weight. Caleb's tactical light cut through the black revealing brick walls, slick with moisture and the occasional rat scurrying away from their approach. The tunnel branched and rebranched a maze of Prohibition-era engineering. You memorized this layout? Maya asked, following close. 4 years ago, thought it might be useful someday. You're either paranoid or brilliant. The line between those two is thinner than people think. Above them, through storm drains and ventilation grates, they could hear the city in chaos. Sirens everywhere shouting the sounds of a metropolis coming apart at the seams. Dorian's Phase 2 was in full effect, and every second that passed meant more damage, more fear, more innocent people caught in the crossfire of corporate warfare. The tunnel opened into the courthouse's old basement, a catacomb of forgotten holding cells and administrative storage. Caleb and Maya emerged into Shadow's weapons up, moving with the synchronized precision of people who'd been trained to kill quietly. The first hostile appeared at the top of the basement stairs, young, nervous, holding a rifle with the grip of someone still learning. Not Spetsnaz. Local hire probably promised easy money for watching a door. Caleb took him down with a suppressed shot that echoed like a whisper in the confined space. The body fell without drama, and he felt the familiar coldness of combat settle over him. This was the part of himself he'd tried to leave behind, the part that calculated lives as tactical variables, that moved through violence like water flowing downhill. Contact down. Maya reported quietly into her radio. They were using a frequency Renee had provided. FBI on standby, but holding position as planned. Proceeding to second floor. Copy. Renee's voice crackled back. Armitage is approaching the main entrance. All units stand by. Through the ceiling, they heard Celeste's voice amplified by bullhorn and live stream simultaneously. Dorian Pike, I'm here to talk. No weapons, no tricks. Just two board members having a conversation about the future of our company. The bait was cast. Caleb and Maya moved up the stairs, clearing corners with practiced efficiency. The courthouse interior was a maze of courtrooms and chambers, all stripped of furniture, but retaining the architectural grandeur of a different era. Emergency lighting from generators cast everything in harsh whites and deep blacks. They found the command center in what had been the judge's chambers, banks of computers, communications equipment, tactical displays showing real-time feeds from the grid attack locations. And sitting at the center of it all, calm as someone playing chess, was Dorian Pike. He wasn't alone. 6 men surrounded him, and one look told Caleb these weren't hired contractors anymore. These were Volkov's people. Professional, cold-eyed, carrying weapons with the ease of lifetime practice. Mr. Ward. Dorian didn't look up from his monitors. Right on schedule. I must say your tactical predictability is almost comforting. Caleb kept his weapon trained on the nearest operative. Shut down the grid attack, now. Why would I do that? It's working beautifully. 3 substations, compromised communications infrastructure failing, and in approximately 8 minutes, this entire city will experience what we in the business world call creative destruction. Dorian finally looked up, smiling. The perfect environment for rebuilding. Under new management, of course. The FBI has your contractors in custody. Your IT vendor flipped. We have sworn affidavits, financial records, everything. Maya's voice was steel. This is over, Dorian. Is it because from where I'm sitting I still control the grid? I still have Celeste Armitage walking into my building like a lamb to slaughter. And I still have enough leverage to walk away from this with a new identity and a Swiss bank account. He gestured to the monitors, showing Celeste entering the courthouse's ground floor. She thinks she's being clever, streaming everything live, building public sympathy, but she's forgotten the first rule of hostage negotiations. What's that? Caleb asked, though he already knew. Dead martyrs are worth more than living heroes. Dorian nodded to one of Volkov's men. Kill her. Make it look like Ward did it. The operative moved with lethal efficiency, but Caleb was already triggering his radio. Sage now. The live stream that Celeste had been broadcasting suddenly shifted not to static, but to a different feed. Sage had hacked into Dorian's own security cameras, his command center computers, and was now broadcasting everything. Every word Dorian had just said, every order to kill, every piece of evidence needed to destroy him. And it was streaming to 10,000 viewers and counting. Dorian's face went from smug to ashen in the span of a heartbeat. What did you... My daughter's smarter than your entire IT department, Caleb said calmly. She's been inside your system since we entered the building. Every command you've given, every coordination with the grid attack teams, every incriminating word, all recorded and currently being shared with the internet. The room exploded into chaos. Volkov's men moved on Dorian's orders, but they were fractured now, uncertain whether to follow through on a plan that had just been exposed to the world. Caleb used that hesitation to drop 2 of them with precise shots, Maya taking down a third with marine accuracy that hadn't dulled with 20 years behind a desk. The remaining three, scattered tactical discipline taking over. One moved toward Caleb, another toward the computer systems to shut down the broadcast, the third toward the door, probably going after Celeste. Caleb made the split-second calculation. Maya the computers, keep that feed live. He went after the operative heading for Celeste, leaving Maya to defend the command center. The corridor was a nightmare of shadows and angles, every doorway a potential ambush. The operative was fast professional, but Caleb had something the Russian didn't. Desperation fueled by the knowledge that his daughter was listening to every gunshot, every near miss, every second of this urban warfare. They collided in what had been a courtroom, the operator spinning with a knife when his ammunition ran out. The fight was brutal and intimate, two professionals trying to kill each other in the space of heartbeats. Caleb took a slash across his ribs that would need stitches later, but drove his own blade into the man's throat with the kind of violence that came from protecting everything that mattered. The operative went down gurgling, and Caleb was already moving, racing toward where Celeste's voice still echoed through the building, calm and steady, as she narrated everything happening around her for the live stream audience. He found her on the grand staircase, backed against the marble railing, with two more of Volkov's men approaching. She'd drawn her weapon, but hadn't fired, probably trying to maintain the moral high ground for the cameras. Caleb didn't have that constraint. He dropped both operators with shots that were more execution than combat, then grabbed Celeste's arm. "We need to move. Where's Dorian?" "Third floor. He ran when the shooting started." Her face was flushed with adrenaline, but her hands were steady. "Caleb Sage got everything, every piece of evidence. Dorian's done." "He's done when he's in federal custody, not before." Caleb keyed his radio. "Maya status?" "Command center secured. I've got access to the grid attack systems." Her voice was tight with focus. "But I can't shut them down remotely. The attack protocols are hardwired with physical failsafes. Someone would need to manually abort at each location." "Can Sage remote access them?" "Already on it." Sage's voice cut in, and despite everything, Caleb felt a surge of pride. "But Dad, there's a problem. The protocols require biometric authentication. Either Dorian's fingerprints or retinal scan. He built in a dead man's switch if he dies without aborting the attack's accelerate." Perfect. Dorian had made himself indispensable to stopping the very catastrophe he'd created. The ultimate leverage. "Then we take him alive," Caleb decided. "Celeste, stay with Maya. Coordinate with Sage on the technical shutdown. I'll get Dorian." "Caleb." Celeste grabbed his arm. "That offer I made, the partnership, the foundation, I meant it, all of it." "I know. So don't die being a hero. Die being an old man who built something better." He smiled despite the circumstances. "I'll see what I can do." The third floor was where the old Supreme Court chambers had been, all oak paneling and judicial gravitas. Dorian had barricaded himself inside, and Caleb could hear him on a phone voice rising with panic as his perfect plan disintegrated in real time. "I don't care what it costs. I need extraction, now, before the FBI—" A pause. "What do you mean you're terminating the contract? I'm still—" Another pause longer. "You can't just abandon—" Caleb kicked open the door with more force than necessary. Dorian spun, phone forgotten, reaching for a weapon that wasn't there because he'd never planned to do his own dirty work. "It's over," Caleb said simply. "Your team's gone, your plan's exposed. The only question left is whether you abort the grid attack and spend life in prison or refuse and spend it in a hole somewhere worse." Dorian's laugh was slightly unhinged. "You think I care about prison? I'm 60 years old. I don't have life left to give. But I can still take this city down with me. I can still destroy Axiom, ruin Celeste, make sure my name means something. Your name will mean domestic terrorist, mass murderer, the man who killed thousands for corporate revenge." Caleb moved closer, weapon steady. "Is that really how you want to be remembered? Better than being forgotten." Dorian's eyes were wild now, all pretense of sophistication gone. "I built empires. I shaped markets. I made decisions that affected millions, and Celeste Armitage, some prodigy who got lucky with patents, she just walks in and dismisses me, treats me like I'm irrelevant." "So this was all ego," Caleb said quietly. "You'd burn a city because someone didn't respect you enough." "I'd burn the world." Dorian pulled out a dead man's switch, actual hardware, a button connected to his biometrics. "This activates if my heart stops, or if I let go. The grid attacks accelerate. Every substation, every communications hub, everything goes at once." Caleb's tactical mind shifted through options. He couldn't shoot Dorian without triggering the switch. Couldn't disarm him without the same result. The man had literally made himself a living bomb. "Stalemate," Dorian said, smiling. "You can't stop me and I can't leave. So we wait here until the city finishes dying, and then we see who history remembers." Or, a new voice said from behind Caleb, "We introduce a third option." Marcus Rook stepped into the chamber, weapon, holstered, hands visible. He looked at Dorian with something approaching contempt. "Your sister," Rook said to Caleb, not breaking eye contact with Dorian. "Peshawar operation. You pulled her medical team out when the compound got hit. Saved her life, though you didn't know who she was at the time." Caleb's memory flickered back, a field hospital under fire, civilians caught in a crossfire between forces that officially didn't exist. He'd gotten them out, but he'd never known names, never asked for thanks. "She became a doctor because of that day," Rook continued. "Works at Mercy General now, downtown, where the power's been out for 20 minutes and patients are dying because the backup generators are failing." "I don't," Dorian started. "Shut up." Rook moved closer. "I don't kill innocents. That's my line. I've walked some dark paths, done things I'm not proud of, but I don't kill innocents. And you've crossed that line so far you can't even see it anymore." He looked at Caleb. "Debts paid, brother, and then some." What happened next happened fast. Rook grabbed Dorian's wrist, the one holding the dead man's switch, and twisted with brutal efficiency. Dorian screamed, his finger slipping from the button, but Rook caught it before it could release. They struggled, weapon forgotten, both men grappling over a device that held a city's fate in its circuits. Caleb moved to help, but Rook waved him off. "The biometric lock. Get Sage to hack it, now." Caleb was already on his radio. "Sage, I need you to bypass a biometric dead man switch. Can you do it remotely if I give you access to the hardware?" "Maybe. If it's connected to any network, even air-gapped, I might be able to." Her fingers were already flying. Caleb could hear the keyboard in the background. "Okay, I see it. It's broadcasting a heartbeat signal to the attack systems. If that signal stops, everything accelerates. But if I can spoof the signal..." Rook was still wrestling with Dorian, who'd gone from corporate executive to desperate animal in seconds. The dead man's switch was slipping between their fingers, both men straining to control it. 30 seconds, Sage said. "I need 30 seconds of stable biometric data to build a convincing spoof." "You heard her," Caleb told Rook. "Hold him steady." What followed was possibly the most absurd moment in Caleb's tactical career, watching a former SEAL turned mercenary essentially hugging a corporate villain to keep him still enough for biometric scanning. Dorian was screaming, thrashing, and Rook was murmuring things that sounded almost like apologies. "I'm sorry," Rook said quietly. "I know you don't understand, but some lines you don't cross. Not for money. Not for anything." 20 seconds. Sage updated. Caleb could hear FBI teams breaching the lower floors. Now Renee's voice barking orders over radio traffic. They'd held back as long as possible, but the gunfire had forced their hand. 10 seconds. Dorian went limp, not from surrender, but from exhaustion. He sagged in Rook's grip, still clutching the dead man's switch, tears streaming down his face. "I just wanted to matter," he whispered. "I just wanted to be remembered." "You'll be remembered," Caleb said quietly. "Just not the way you hoped." "Done." Sage's voice was triumphant. I've got the spoof running. The attack systems think Dorian's biometrics are still active. You can take the switch. Rook carefully pried the device from Dorian's fingers. The man didn't resist anymore, just stared at his empty hands like they belonged to someone else. Abort code, Caleb demanded. Now, or I let the FBI charge you with however many counts of attempted murder they can dream up. Dorian gave them the codes, all of them. And within 5 minutes, Maya and Sage working in concert, they'd sent abort signals to every attack team, every substation, every node in Dorian's network of chaos. The city's lights began coming back on in waves, power restored, communications re-established. Through the courthouse windows, Caleb could see the skyline rebuilding itself from darkness, a metropolis refusing to die. FBI tactical teams flooded the chamber seconds later, securing Dorian, reading him rights. He probably wasn't hearing anymore. Renee Park took one look at the scene. Caleb bleeding from half a dozen wounds. Rook standing there with his hands raised in surrender. Dorian broken and hollow, and just shook her head. You couldn't have waited for us. Where's the fun in that? Caleb was suddenly exhausted, adrenaline crashing into the reality of pain and blood loss. Medical's downstairs. Get checked out. Then I need statements from everyone. She looked at Rook. Starting with you. You've got some explaining to do. Yeah, I figured. Rook met Caleb's eyes one last time. We're square now. For real. For real, Caleb agreed. They took Dorian away in handcuffs, still murmuring about being remembered about mattering. Caleb watched him go and felt nothing, not satisfaction, not triumph, just tired acceptance that some people could have everything and still need more. Sage burst into the chamber like a hurricane laptop, abandoned, and threw herself at Caleb with enough force to make his ribs scream in protest. He didn't care. He held his daughter and felt the terror of the past 48 hours finally crash over him. Don't ever do that again, she said into his chest. Do what? Make me listen to you almost die over a radio. I'll do my best. He pulled back to look at her. You saved the city, you know. Your hack, your technical work, none of this happens without you. I learned from the best. She smiled through tears. Both of you. Mom taught me to be brave. You taught me to be smart about it. Celeste and Maya appeared together, both looking exhausted and exhilarated in equal measure. Celeste's live stream was still running, had captured everything, and was being shared across every platform imaginable. The truth was out there now, impossible to spin or bury. The board's calling an emergency meeting, Celeste reported. Dorian's being removed immediately. Several other members are facing investigations. And Maya. She smiled at her CFO. Maya's proxy rights just became very important. About that, Maya said. Those proxies, the founder's failsafe, I'm transferring them to employee control. 62% voting power distributed among everyone who actually builds this company. No more coups. No more hostile takeovers. Just people who care about the work. That's... Celeste looked stunned. That's revolutionary. It's necessary. Maya squeezed her shoulder. And it's what the old man would have wanted. Power distributed so widely, it can't be corrupted. The shareholder meeting happened 2 days later, broadcast live to prove transparency. Dorian had been formally removed from the board charges filed that would keep him in federal custody for decades. The other compromised board members had resigned rather than face investigation. And in their place, Celeste announced a restructuring that made Axiom into something unprecedented. A corporation where employees held controlling interest, where profit was balanced with purpose, where the technology they built would be protected from weaponization. This isn't about me anymore. Celeste told the cameras standing before a packed conference room and thousands of remote viewers. It's about building something that can't be corrupted by a single person's ego or ambition. It's about making sure what happened this week can never happen again. The vote was unanimous. Caleb watched it all from the back of the room, arm in a sling from the shoulder wound that had required surgery, Sage sitting beside him. She'd been offered an internship at Axiom, paid no special treatment, despite her role in saving the company, and had accepted with the kind of enthusiasm that made Caleb's chest tight with pride. After the meeting, after the press conferences, and the congratulations, and the slow return to something approaching normalcy, Celeste found him in her office. It was late, the city lights spread below like earthbound stars, and she had 2 glasses of bourbon that probably cost more than his monthly rent. "So," she said, handing him one, "about that offer. The partnership, the foundation." "Yeah." She sat on the edge of her desk, casual in a way that felt earned rather than performed. "I meant every word. Ward Armitage Foundation for Corporate Defense. We protect the companies that can't protect themselves. We teach security protocols. We build networks of shared intelligence. We make sure small firms don't get eaten by sharks like Dorian." "That's a lot of idealism," Caleb observed. "I'm rich enough to afford idealism, and you're cynical enough to keep it practical." She smiled. "Perfect partnership. What about the rest?" "The rest. The part where this isn't just business." Caleb set down his untouched bourbon. "When you said the offer wasn't a job, wasn't a salary, what did you mean?" Celeste met his eyes, and for once she wasn't the billionaire CEO or the quantum physics prodigy. She was just a woman who'd survived something terrible and come out wanting something real. "I meant building a life," she said quietly. "Not just protecting companies, but protecting each other. Being partners in every sense that matters. You and me and Sage building something that makes the world safer for families like yours. That's a hell of a proposition. It's the only one that matters." She moved closer. "I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other outside of crisis situations. But Caleb, I watched you choose mercy when you could have chosen vengeance. I watched you put your daughter first, even when it cost you tactically. I watched you be exactly the kind of person I want to build a life with." Caleb thought about his wife, about the grief that had defined the past 8 months, about the fear of moving forward and leaving her memory behind. But he also thought about what she would have wanted, not for him to freeze in amber, but to live, to grow, to find joy again. 6 months, he said. "We try this for 6 months. Build the foundation, work together. See if it's real or just trauma bonding. And we take it slow with Sage. She's been through enough without adding relationship drama." 6 months? Celeste agreed. "I can work with that." They shook on it, and then, because they'd both earned it, they let the handshake become a hug that lasted longer than professional courtesy required. The foundation launched 3 months later. Ward Armitage Corporate Defense Nonprofit, backed by Celeste's resources and Caleb's tactical expertise. They started small 5 companies in the first year, teaching security protocols, building networks, creating communities of shared protection. Sage graduated high school early and enrolled at MIT, studying computer science with a focus on security systems. She'd spent too much time inside corporate networks during her father's crisis, and now she wanted to make sure other people's daughters didn't have to do the same. Marcus Rook served 2 years in a federal prison for his role in the Axiom attacks, then emerged quietly to start his own security firm, one that explicitly refused any contracts involving violence against civilians. He and Caleb traded occasional messages, the kind of terse communication between men who'd crossed paths at pivotal moments and survived to tell about it. Dorian Pike was sentenced to 43 years in federal prison on charges ranging from domestic terrorism to conspiracy to commit murder. He gave no interviews, made no statements, and gradually faded from public memory, forgotten in exactly the way he'd feared most. And on a Saturday morning, 8 months after the courthouse confrontation, Caleb found himself in the Foundation's office watching Sage explain security protocols to a CEO half his age, while Celeste negotiated with potential donors. The office smelled like coffee and determination, and through the windows he could see a city that had survived its brush with corporate-sponsored chaos. Maya appeared with contracts needing signatures, and she'd brought breakfast burritos because she'd learned that Caleb functioned poorly without regular feeding. "You look happy," she observed. "I look functional," Caleb corrected. "Same thing for guys like you." She handed him the contracts. 3 new companies requesting our services. 1 pharmaceutical startup worried about hostile acquisition. 1 clean energy firm dealing with sabotage attempts. And 1 non-profit developing water purification tech for developing nations. We taking all of them. That's your call. You're the tactical director. Then we take them. We protect people who are trying to build good things. Caleb signed the contracts, each one a commitment to stand between innovation and those who'd weaponize it. That's what we do now. Celeste joined them, having finished her donor call, with what looked like significant success. She squeezed Caleb's shoulder as she passed casual contact that had become comfortable over months of working side by side. "Did you tell him?" she asked Maya. "Tell me what. The city council wants to give you an award. Civilian Medal of Honor. Public ceremony, press coverage, the whole thing." Maya grinned at his expression. "You're a hero, Ward. Deal with it." "I don't want an award." "Too bad. You get one anyway." Celeste pulled up a chair, sitting close enough that their arms touched. "They're also naming a wing of Mercy General after you. The emergency medicine unit that stayed operational during the blackout because Rook's sister fought to keep it running. They want to commemorate that." Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Can they name it after my wife instead? She was the real hero. Fought cancer for 18 months and never complained. That's harder than anything I did." Celeste's smile was gentle. "I'll make it happen. Jennifer Ward Memorial Emergency Medicine Wing. Perfect." They worked through the afternoon building something that mattered, not just protecting companies, but creating a model for how capitalism could be tempered with conscience. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was better, and better counted for something. That evening, after Sage had video called from MIT to share news about her latest project after Maya had left for a date with someone she'd met through the foundation, Caleb and Celeste sat in the empty office and watched the sun set over a city that had almost died and refused to stay down. "You ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't been there that night?" Celeste asked quietly. "Outside the opera house. Every day. And I'm glad I was there. Even with everything that followed, I'm glad I didn't walk away." Caleb turned to look at her. "You changed my life. Sage's too. Gave us purpose again when we were just going through motions. You saved mine first. Literally." She took his hand, the gesture still new enough to feel significant. "So, where does that leave us? You satisfied with 6 months of partnership?" Caleb thought about the question seriously. Thought about the foundation they'd built, the lives they'd protected, the way Sage lit up talking about her work with Axiom's security team during summer breaks. Thought about how Celeste had learned to make coffee the way he liked it, and how he'd memorized her schedule well enough to know when she needed space and when she needed company. "I'm satisfied enough to try another 6 months," he said. "And then, maybe another 6 after that." "Sounds like you're proposing something long-term." "Maybe I am." He squeezed her hand. "My wife taught me that life's too short for fear, and you taught me that purpose matters more than safety. So yeah, I'm proposing we keep building this. All of it. The foundation, the partnership, whatever we're becoming." Celeste kissed him, then soft and certain, and it felt like the kind of beginning that had been earned through fire and blood, and choosing each other when easier options existed. "Deal," she said against his lips. "Let's keep building." And they did. In a city that had survived corporate terrorism and emerged stronger in a foundation that protected dreamers from nightmares, in a partnership that proved some offers were too good to resist, not because of money or power or obligation, but because they promised something better than survival. They promised a life worth living. The end came, not with explosions or drama, but with the quiet satisfaction of work that mattered, love that was earned, and a daughter who'd learned that courage meant protecting others, even when you were terrified. Sage would carry that lesson forward, building security systems that made the world safer for families like hers. Celeste would continue revolutionizing corporate governance, proving that power could be distributed rather than hoarded. And Caleb, the ex-Navy single dad who'd stopped an abduction and changed everything, would spend his days protecting people who built good things and his nights building a good life with someone who understood exactly what that cost. Somewhere in a federal prison, Dorian Pike would grow old being forgotten. Somewhere in the city, lights would burn bright because people chose to protect rather than destroy. And somewhere in a Foundation office, overlooking a skyline that refused to die, two people who'd survived the worst would build something worth surviving for. That was the offer Caleb couldn't resist. Not a salary or a job title or even gratitude. Just a chance to matter, to build, to love again. And in the end, that was everything.